A useless boy, tricked by a band of other races, is dragged into the abyss, where they toy with his body and kill him slowly. But just when all hope seems lost, a miracle happens. He's transported somewhere else, somewhere even more terrifying. A monster of level 1000 stands before him. What will happen to Light? Stay tuned to find out everything. And hey, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and drop a comment telling us which country you're watching from. Our episode begins with this incredibly awesome anime. This was the beginning. There was nothing. The world was a dark, empty void inhabited only by demons, shayateen, and jinn. There were no humans. After that, different races emerged. The dragon race, the fairies, jinnayat, the oni, the dwarves, the demon race, the dark elves, dark jinn, the centaurs, the monster race, and finally, humans. The scene shifts to a beautiful village. We see Light warmly saying goodbye to his family, his father, mother, and his siblings, Alice, Alice, and Yumi. He promised them he would become a very powerful, high-ranking adventurer, support them financially, and make them rich. The scene moves to when he was in another city, perhaps having lost his way. At that very moment, a member of the monster race approached him and said, "Get lost, human. You are supposed to stay away from our path, or I will kill you." Light apologized and continued on his way until he reached the guild hall. Now it was his turn. A guild receptionist welcomed him and asked if it was his first day registering. He replied, "Yes, it's my first time ever registering. My name is Light." She began writing his registration form and told him, "You'll be rank F, the lowest rank, since this is your first time registering. But tell me, do you have any skills?" He responded, "Yes, of course I do." She said, "Show me then." He told her it was the infinite gacha skill. "I'll explain now," he said. A star appeared in his hand and he began spinning it. Then a card appeared with a thorn on it. But when he released it, the thorn was unfortunately bent and crooked. He told her, "Don't be shocked. Wait, I'll try again." He tried once, twice, and a third time, producing a rotten apple and moldy bread. She said, sarcastically, "No, your talent is clearly very good." He told her, "Do whatever you want." She then gave him the rank F card, the lowest rank. Before leaving, he asked if there was any job he could start immediately. She said, "Look, boss, the easiest jobs are posted on that bulletin board over there." He looked at the board, but his expression changed. She said, "I have a feeling you can't read, can you?" "Unfortunately, no, I can't read. I'm illiterate and ignorant," he confessed. She replied, "Don't worry about it. In that case, there is collecting firewood, carrying trays, and cutting grass. Farm work, essentially, a peasant's job." He said, "Anything as long as I can work and earn money." Afterward, Light adapted to his job carrying stones, filling the cart, and performing very difficult labor. He returned at the end of the day with a small amount of money. Despite his enormous effort, the money was little. But this is the world, he thought. Work a lot and you get a small amount of money. Work an easy job and you get a lot of money. The world works backward. This money was barely enough for him to afford lodging tonight. But then a great disaster occurred. He ran into a group of monsters. Masas Volnom. What do you think they will do to him? Please pause the video and write in the comments. One of the monsters bumped into him and said, "You idiot! Can't you look where you're going?" Light said, "I'm truly sorry. I didn't notice." They replied, "Nobody. You stain my clothes. Who's going to wash them now? Look, I'm taking this money. It's barely enough to cover my laundry bill." Light got angry and said, "Please give me back my money. That money is mine and I worked hard for it all day today. I won't be able to stay the night without it." But the monster struck him a powerful blow, knocking him to the ground, and then said, "Be thankful if you can rent a pigsty with that amount. Now get out of our sight. To let you go, we have to take this money. Come on, guys, let's take the money and get some drinks." Light was very sad and helpless at that moment. At that moment, he saw a member of the elven race extending her hand to him and checking on him, but he was startled. She told him, "Don't be afraid, I won't hurt or harm you." She then gave him a sisterly hug, so much so that he thought to himself, "Did this fairy/elf ruin her knees in the mud just to hug me? Am I dreaming?" She said, "Don't worry, buddy. You're truly awake. Come on, get up." He then saw the group. They belonged to a squad called the Covenant of the Tribes, Ufak al-Kaba'el, a group that includes the 9 races we mentioned at the beginning of the episode. The Wolfman spoke to him, saying, "I, for example, am from the monster species. My name is Garo. The girl who extended her hand to you is Sasha from the dwarves. And there are others here such as dragons and demons, and that dwarf with the beard and chin is Nano. That girl is Seoni from the Dark Elves, Dark Jinn. And that red man is Centaur, the Quantur. All we need now is a human to complete our squad. We formed this group in pursuit of a noble cause. We want to put an end to racial discrimination and create a fair world for everyone. First, my friends, if you are followers of the animerecaps channel, write in the comments which country you are from. If you are not following the animerecaps channel, please follow the channel. Then write done in the comments and also mention which country you are from. They continued their conversation, saying, "We need someone like you to join us." Light was very happy with this wonderful idea. The scene then shifts to Light, who is with a group of monsters. The dragon quickly saves him. Another monster tries to attack him, but another girl saves him. "Yes, it's Sasha," she told him. "What's the matter? I can't take my eyes off you for even a minute. We are in the abyss, the most evil place on earth. You will die instantly if anything happens to you here. I will protect you. Don't worry." However, the rest of the squad gathered and mocked her, saying, "Sasha can't keep herself away from Light. All the blood is rushing to her cheeks. Look how red her face is." She replied, "That's not true. I just don't want anyone in the squad to be lost." The dragon speaks to him, saying, "Don't worry. Isn't it enough that you know how to do one thing? You will cook for the squad. That's all we need. Now, let's move on. The road ahead is long." They continued on their way and suddenly stopped at a place to rest. Light went to prepare tea for them. One of the monsters approached him. Light said, "Wait, I will bring the tea right away." The monster informed him, "That won't be necessary. You are being exiled from this squad now," Light asked. "But why? What did I do?" They replied, "That's just the way it is. You are being expelled from the squad, and you are not coming with us. Don't you hear? You are now useless to us. Since you don't have abilities like ours, you will only hinder us." Sasha, the girl who was kind to him, said, "This child is so stupid that he makes me feel sad. Everyone supported getting rid of him and exiling him from the squad. Everyone mocked him." He told them, "You must be joking. Tell me you are joking." They responded, "Do we have time to joke with a despicable and stupid human like you?" He said, "But I'm not stupid. You were all so kind to me just a moment ago." "What happened now?" Paro told him. "We were just pretending and deceiving you, you stupid fool, but unfortunately you are useless. When we saw your skill, we thought this guy might be useful, but unfortunately it's worthless. Look, we've talked enough. Now it's the end. You won't talk much after this." The dragon ordered Garo to execute him immediately, meaning they would banish him from existence. Garo took charge of this, sharpening his very strong and shiny claws, and then tore at his face, which was now covered in blood. Light was utterly shocked and terrified. Standing before these monsters, he ran quickly, but they told him, "Run all you want. You will only end up as ground meat for some monsters in the abyss." Then Sasha, the girl who had been affectionate towards him and hugged him from the start, shot him in the leg with one of her arrows. This teaches us, my friends, never to trust anyone no matter the circumstances. The arrow pierced his leg, making him fall to the ground, crying and screaming in intense pain. Garo then delivered a very powerful kick that nearly broke Light's breath, and he started kicking him repeatedly. The dragon told him, "That's enough. Finish him off with one strike." Light tried to move and resist death. He was trying to use any means possible, even though he knew he was inevitably dead. And indeed, my friends, something strange happened. An instant teleportation circle activated. Garo tried to hit him quickly before he could escape, but the circle activated rapidly, and he teleported to another location, perhaps a place even harsher than where he had been. Light could barely believe he was still alive. He had activated an instant teleportation trap at the last moment, which sent him to another location in this labyrinth. He began to cry, remembering his mother, father, and siblings, missing them all. He recalled the group. Those monsters who invited him to join their team treated him well and showed him much kindness. I valued them, respected them, and believed in them, and I was so happy about it. And yet it was all just a lie. They tricked me into joining an exploratory trip into the labyrinth. Then they tried to kill me, treating me like garbage, with huge smiles of mockery on their faces, talking about some nonsense. I don't know what maestro they were talking about. I will kill them all and take my revenge. They hurt me so much. They will all pay the price, and I will not die here. I swear I will rip out their guts. Suddenly, giant rocky monsters level 1000 appeared. Light was terrified because these monsters were only spoken of in folk tales. He realized he had truly been transported to the deepest part of the abyss in this labyrinth. Despite this, and even as the monster started advancing and preparing to attack him, he was determined to fight and not surrender to death. He searched for a way to fight this thing and activated his gacha, pressing it again and again, but it didn't respond. He insisted on activating it to escape those scoundrels. Suddenly, the gacha worked, emitting a great light. Many magical gates opened from it, instantly annihilating the monsters. A voice declared, "I will not allow anyone to harm my master, whatever the cost." She then knelt before her master, Light, and began healing his wounds, apologizing for not being able to bear seeing his handsome face wounded like this. "Henceforth, I have taken upon myself the mission of taking care of you, master." Light was surprised that he no longer felt any pain. He stood up, the pain completely gone, barely believing it. The girl introduced herself. He told her his name was Light. She responded, "Master Light, Lord of Light. That name sounds majestic and heavenly to the ear. According to the maid's code of honor, I am bound by duties to my master, Light, Lord of Light. I shall live in your service, bound until death, and I pledge my absolute loyalty to you." Light was astonished and asked her, "And where exactly did you come from?" She informed him that her level was 9999, and she was known as May, the ever-searching maid. "I am an extremely rare card that came from your limited Master Light Gacha, and I will remain tied to you even after death." But Light was very surprised, saying, "My unlimited gacha is worthless. There's no way someone as wonderful as you could come out of it." "Miss?" The maid asked him to call her May, without titles. Light did so. She was very pleased and asked him for another request, to assess his abilities. "Wow, the use of my appraisal ability is one of my innate skills. It is unreasonable for your gift to be worthless, master. Please allow me to assess it." Her Light allowed her. May performed the assessment and could hardly believe it. "My master's abilities are hidden beneath a thick layer of concealment, and it is impossible for anyone not at my level to see the details." She then told him, "Your unique power is not worthless at all. Your gacha has an infinite number of paths. The probability of obtaining your gift and the rarity of the cards it produces vary based on the surrounding mana density. Mana is something that flows everywhere throughout the world. However, its density is at its lowest on the surface. This means the appearance of an extremely rare card, like me, is close to zero. But mana is abundant here, deep within this labyrinth. This means you have much better chances of obtaining a rare card. You are very brave, master, for having traveled all the way down into this labyrinth alone. However, facing any monster could be fatal, given your current statistics. But fear not, I will always be with you from now on." Light interrupted her, saying, "You are wrong. I could never face the abyss alone." Light began to cry, remembering when he was with that treacherous team. "But they all betrayed me. I was cut and shot with arrows, and I was about to be killed by people I thought were my friends. They said my gift was bad and called me a miserable human. All I wanted was to provide for my family. How could they treat me this way just because I'm human? The pain was unbearable. It hurt so much. All that talk about ending discrimination and creating a fair world, they just wanted to trick me. It's insane. They were so kind one moment, but then they turn into evil murderers. They will all pay the price. I won't rest until they get their just deserts." Tears streamed down his face. He was extremely angry. May then began to hug him, calming him down. The maid apologized for everything that happened and assured him, "With my power available to you at any time, I will make them regret the day they were born. I will inflict a severe punishment upon them. It is an easy matter for me. Please, issue the orders, and I will do everything you ask of me. I will hunt down those deceitful heathens with maximum speed and bring their heads on spears before you, master." Light asked her to wait and to spare them, but May knew her master was kind-hearted, so she told him, "They do not deserve mercy, master." Light replied, "I put my trust in them, and they deceived me. I almost died after being severely beaten, and I was brought to this hell. But this is only because I was weak. Therefore, I need to become stronger. Maybe it's impossible for a human like me, but I want revenge with my own hands, and I will make them all suffer. Do you think this is a far-fetched dream, May?" She bowed to him and granted her master this wish. "If personal revenge is what you seek, master, it is my honor, and I will help you accomplish that. I believe in your potential more than anything else, master." Light was very happy with her words. Light began to activate his gacha again in this mana-filled place to establish a kingdom capable of paving the way for revenge. The black depths were flooded with bright light, becoming the first page in his great story of vengeance. Wait for us in the next episode, a very exciting episode of this anime. Wait for us in the next episode and find out what Light will do with those traitors and deceivers. Before you leave this video, we ask you to subscribe to the channel and activate the bell button to receive all that is new.
3 years went by in this place, and Light had created a kingdom of his own in this abyss. Every maid were a fangirl of Light, and that just irritated me so much. But Light told to mind them, and goes around his land on a survey. There were many stores and people living here, and everyone respects Light. He's the ruler here, and he takes care of them, like their safety and their necessities. After that survey, He asked about others, and Mei said Aoyuki is currently creating a map of the abyss and the surface, and she reported nothing unusual. And then comes the mage, Lady Ellie, who's been developing new magic for Light's plan, and it was also in good flow. She's dumb, and she's doing the patrol duty of the castle right now. With that, he arrived to meet Jack, another powerful summon. And he gets too casual with Light, but Light never minds because he saw Jack as an older brother. In this 3 years, Jack has trained Light in close quarters and turned him into a pure monster. By the way, Nazuna was really doing her job and met the 4 maids on the way. She was happy to carry out Light's work, and maids started praising her for such honest work. Nuna is easily manipulated, so the maids asked for a favor. Then she went to a place that was off limits to other maids, and she found Mei in that place. Mei was cleaning up Light's room, but Nuna went inside and saw the bedsheet was a mess, and by the looks of it, she was sniffing it. But Nazuna is too pure, or rather too naive to understand this sort of things. That's why Mei came up with some stupid reason, and she believed her words. But then she remembers the message those 4 maids sent. It says, "Stop monopolizing Master Light's room, because they also want equal rights, you tyrant Mei." But the last part was hard for Nazuna to understand. But Mei got it fully. It was the curse words, and Mei decided to punish them. But first, she gives a few penny to Nuna to send her away like a kid. She quickly went to snack stores to buy some dorayaki and milk. But on the way, she found Aoyuki. Aoyuki was supposed to be on the surface, but she did already. Aoyuki had the habit of mimicking a cat. So, it's hard to converse with her sometimes. But when Nazuna said she could depend on her, she instantly pulled out her report to show she can do anything on her own. With that, Nazuna continues her duties and came to the throne room. There she got all clingy with Light's throne, but in emotional flow, she accidentally broke the side wing of his throne, so she swiftly ran off after putting it back. Meanwhile, Light went to bath with Jack after a tiring session of fighting, which implies Light is now completely ready to return to the surface to exact his revenge. After that, Mei called in the 4 who sent that complaint through Nazuna, and she was calm, or rather, she was trying to stay calm, but the 4 said they just wanted to lighten her workload in their own way. But Mei remembers the last part of their complaint. It wasn't friendly at all. And worse, they sent it through Nazuna. Now they all started to blame each other, but in any case, Mei assigned them to clean the whole hallway till the throne room with hand. Besides, she has to go to the surface soon, so she told them to work in her absence. In the meantime, Nazuna meets with Ellie, and her work was proceeding smoothly, so she had some spare time on hand. Ellie always picks on Nazuna, so she tries to prove how smart she is. But Nazuna knew she knows nothing about surrounding, and that caused a scene. And then Ellie said how she wants to invite Light to her room for dinner. Nazuna is too pure that she doesn't understand at all. She literally thought Ellie meant dinner only. So after that, Nazuna tried to show she also has an upper hand. Ellie is a mage, so she's not good in close combat, and asked to rely on her. Even Ellie can't be mad on such a pure lady. And that's how she goes away to resume her patrol duty. But somewhere in the castle, 4 maids were still frustrated how Mei was hogging Light all for herself. They wanted to get fair treatment, but Mei is way stronger than them. They also want to go to Light's room and go through all of his belongings. And bed as well. But one of them was weird with her taste, because she wanted to use the same utensils as Light. The other 3 found it creepy, but they also want to do the same. But their biggest obstacles is Mei. After all, she's the summon Light pulled, so they can't do much. But it reminds them that the second gacha pull took 3 months, which means Mei was all alone with Light in this dungeon. Their fantasy ran wild, and Mei heard all of their nonsense from outside, even the part where they were praying for her death. So, one by one, everyone took a U-turn and said they're always loyal to her to sugarcoat her. But still, Mei said that 3 months when they were alone, Light was always working hard, so they didn't do anything they were thinking about. But besides that, Mei added another punishment to this for a clean throne room as well. So, when they were in the throne room cleaning it up, the part Nazuna broke fell down, and they thought it was their mistake. But the real culprit was relaxing at night in her room. But the next day, it was time for them to head back on the surface, and watching Light being chummy with Aoki Ellie also tried to hit on him, but a hellhound appears there, and the trauma from 3 years ago still shakes up Light. Watching that, girls got so ticked that they decided to wipe out the entire hellhound breed. But Light calms him down since he's okay. And furthermore, it's time to put their plan into motion. And that's how the hunt for revenge starts. And right there, our episode ends. But stay tuned to watch more of its episode, and for that make sure you subscribe the channel and hit the bell icon. Our episode begins with the monster Guru's procession with his followers through the city center. As their champion, Everyone greeted him with overwhelming joy, glorifying him like a king. One of the monsters behind him even offered him his sister's hand in marriage, but Garou paid him no attention, as his current interests were far beyond that. At that moment, Garou spotted a miserable human boy scavenging for food in the trash. Instead of ignoring him, he deliberately walked towards him and struck him with his foot, knocking him to the ground. Garou enjoyed bullying and humiliating the boy before gathering his crew and heading to a private room. In the room, the followers began to exalt and praise Garou, as was their custom. One of them said, "You are a miracle, Garou. You rose from the poor monster district and became the closest candidate for the new leadership." Another added, "Even the current leader recognizes your strength." They asked him how he reached such a position. Garou puffed up with pride and said, "All I do is follow my animalistic instinct, which always guides me to the best traits. Like the mission I took 3 years ago. The requirement was to pretend affiliation with the racial unification group and eliminate a human suspected of possessing mysterious power." He continued coldly, "I didn't care to confirm his death, as his weakness guaranteed his demise after what he suffered. It's best to forget that wretch." Suddenly, the door opened and a very elegant girl entered. It was May. She asked in a calm voice, "Are you Garou? I want to ask you about someone named Light." His men shouted at her, but Garou raised his hand and said, "Leave her. I want to know what she wants." May said, "I am the servant of Mr. Light, and I have come from a distant country searching for him. My master is from a large and noble family, and I have served him for a long time." Garou doubted her words, thinking, "This doesn't align with the search information done by those who hired me." It was never mentioned that he was from a noble family, but the girl's appearance indeed suggested wealth. Garou smiled and said, "All right, what exactly is your request?" May said, "I received news that Mr. Light died in the dungeon about 3 years ago. I want you to take me to the place of his death to pay my respects, and I will give you pure gold in return." Garou smelled treachery, wondering why she would pay so much gold to visit an old place. But when he looked at her, he found her to be just a weak human, so he laughed inwardly and said out loud, "I will help you. Not for the money, but because Light was my friend, and I want to honor him." May smiled inwardly with cunning, knowing he was lying, and thanked him and expressed her gratitude. After a full month of travel, they finally reached the place of Light's disappearance. However, Garou was planning to attack May and leave her to die the same way Light had died. As soon as they arrived, May knelt on the ground, tears falling, imagining the difficult moments Light endured in the dungeon's darkness. Garou began his performance. The poor fellow was suddenly attacked by a monster and fell into a transfer trap before we could save him. At the same time, his men quietly moved to close the exit, preparing for the attack. But before they could attack, May said in a voice full of rage, "If I had been with Mr. Light from the start, he would not have been betrayed and fallen into the hands of scum like you." Garou froze and stepped back. "How does she know these details of the betrayal?" He yelled at her. "How do you know this? You're a spy!" Me breathed angrily and said, "How dare you compare me to them? I am Mr. Light's servant, and the penalty for anyone who doubts my loyalty is death." Garou felt a sudden terror. This ordinary human was emitting a terrifying aura that made his animalistic instinct scream to run. May was about to turn into a massacre, but a calm voice came from behind her. "Enough, May. Leave him. He is my prey." Garou and his men stiffened in place. They hadn't felt anyone approach. When they looked, they found Light standing before them. Garou's eyes widened in disbelief. "Impossible! How is Light alive?" Light looked at him coldly and said, "I came back to take my due with my own hands, Garou." Garou burst out laughing. "You, the weak one. I am now at level 150, and you are at level 15. How will you even touch me?" He believed that killing Light would make him the greatest champion for the leader. Light said calmly, "Don't you want to ask me how I survived?" Garou laughed sarcastically. "Surely this lady rescued you after your transfer," which was actually true. Garou yelled at his men to attack. 2 of them quickly lunged, but their heads flew off in an instant. The rest of the men froze in terror, unable even to see May as she finished them off. Light said to May calmly, "Thank you, but from here on, I'll take care of everything. Guard the exit and don't let anyone escape." Garou tried to compose himself and said to his remaining men, "Don't worry, we won't be defeated by a few weak humans." Light laughed and said, "The one who says this is the weakest of you," Garou snapped. "That's nonsense. Humans are the weakest beings and have no power." Light raised an eyebrow. "Then how are the heads of 2 of your strongest men rolling now?" Garou ignored him. That was their mistaken stupidity, and he yelled, "Let's go for him!" They all rushed at once, but Light didn't move. In seconds, he finished them off one by one with a single blow. Garou fell to the ground, disbelieving. Light stood over him and said, "Is this your strength? You are nothing. You think you are superior to humans? You are worthless." Garou decided to use his last card. He broke a contract on his neck, and a huge light burst out, revealing a giant Fenrir-type monster. Level 500. Garou screamed confidently, "This is your end, Light! This monster will wipe you out of existence with a single breath." Light stood before him with strange composure and smiled. Level 500. "Still very weak for me." Garou was terrified. "Are you insane? It's impossible for you to defeat it. Kneel and beg for mercy." Light said, "All right, let me show you the difference. I won't move from my spot. Hit me with your strongest attack!" Garou yelled at the monster to attack. The monster moved and unleashed a massive energy, a devastating attack called Killer Beast Howl, capable of destroying an entire fortress. The explosion was terrifying, and dust covered the area. Garou laughed maniacally, but when the smoke began to clear, his face froze. Light was standing in his place, without a single scratch or a hair moved. Light said with a quiet, sarcastic tone, "This is the attack you were excited about? It's not even enough to warm the air around me." He looked at the monster and said, "You call this weak creature Fenrir? It's barely a small dog." Light extended his hand and pulled out a magic card. "Now let me show you what a true Fenrir looks like." He opened the card, and a massive vortex appeared, out of which an ancient, gigantic wolf emerged, its eye glowing blue, its power freezing the air. He said, "This is the true monster level 9000. Garou was paralyzed in his spot. When the wolf looked towards Garou's Fenrir, it took a single breath, and the monster Garou summoned froze instantly and shattered like ice. Garou stood petrified, disbelieving. He said in fear, "This is impossible. What is this monster?" Light said calmly, "Don't worry, it was just a small demonstration. I could have finished your monster with my hand." Then he pointed to the status screen open before him. Garou looked, and his face changed, his hand trembling. Light's level was 99999. He screamed in disbelief, "This isn't real! There is no level that reaches this number." He swallowed hard and said with tears and fear, "You can't be Light. You are a devil!" Light approached him and said, "Does it matter to you whether I am Light or not? In the end, your fate is the same." Garou completely lost hope, threw down his weapon, and fell to his knees, pleading, "Please forgive me. I was following orders. You are the true king of magic. Please let me live." Light looked coldly and said, "Before I decide, I have questions you must answer truthfully." Garou agreed immediately. Light said, "First, why did your superiors order you to search for people named the Masters?" Garou was confused. "I don't know who the Masters are. I was following orders." Light said, "Then why, after they confirmed I was not one of them, did they decide to kill me?" Garou said fearfully, "They were orders from above. Your existence must be completely erased, but I don't know the reason." Light was silent for a moment, then looked at Garou's followers and asked them, "Do you know anything about the Masters?" They all replied at the same moment, "Yes, we know." May moved at lightning speed and sliced them all with her sword, saying in a terrifying voice, "The punishment for liars before Light is death." Light looked at Garou and said calmly, "One last question before I decide your fate. If you lie, May knows the truth, and your end will be worse than death." Garou felt frozen. Light said, "Since you have a strong sense, do you think I can win any war against the kings outside the dungeon now?" Garou hesitated and was stressed, but finally said, "With your power, you might win the beginning, but you will lose. You are alone. War is armies and numbers, and in the end, you will be defeated." Light smiled, certain of his answer, and said, "You're right, but let me show you something that will change your mind. Nios dia speak when endusescent." He extended his hand and pulled out a magic card, and light covered the area. When Garou opened his eyes, he found himself in a huge throne room with many armies before him. He was terrified. Then he saw Light's true army, thousands of fighters in regular ranks. Light walked towards the throne and said loudly, "Display your levels!" The soldiers showed their energy. Garou was paralyzed when he saw the numbers. Most of them were above level 5000, and the weakest was 1500. He stammered, "The whole level is above 5000. Even the weakest of them is stronger than all our soldiers." Light said confidently, "And now, Garou, after seeing my army with your own eyes, do you still think a war against the kings is impossible?" Garou could not reply. His face twisted with fear. He said, "You won't just defeat them, you'll make a shawarma out of them too." Light smiled coldly. "I was sure of that. Now that you've confirmed with your own eyes that victory is easy for me." He approached him, his voice heavy like a devil's echo. "Since you were honest with me, I will reward you for your honesty." Garou's face lit up with hope. "You'll forgive me then?" Light chuckled lightly. "Of course it's impossible for me to forgive you, Garou." Then his tone darkened. "I won't kill you, because killing you is a great mercy. I will make you live, but you will wish for death every moment." And he ordered his soldiers to prepare to go to the surface. So, what is our hero planning? And what is the punishment he has prepared for Garou? If you are excited, champion, for the continuation of the events, don't forget to support us with a like and subscription. After years away, Light returned to his home, eagerly running up the path to his house. He couldn't wait to see his parents and siblings again. However, when he reached the top of the valley overlooking his village, he found it in ruins. He tried to walk up the path to get a better view, but the sight overwhelmed him, and he fell to his knees. During his absence, the village had been ravaged by unknown forces. He spent the next 6 months sifting through the ruins, giving the dead a proper burial. He was devastated that his village was gone, but he felt a sliver of relief because he never found the bodies of his siblings in the rubble. He held on to the slight chance that they might still be alive. As Light finished mourning for his parents, Gold urged him to get back into action. "We've been away from our kingdom for far too long," he said. Namumu scolded him. "You're so obnoxious you can't even read the room." Light needs to take things easy. He's grieving. Gold pointed out, "I'm just trying to get back to the comfort of my own bed." He then accused Namumu of hypocrisy. "I'm sure you're eager to return." "Too," Numu interjected, "unlike you. I'll stick by Light, even if it means sleeping at the peak of the coldest mountains, without anything to shield me from the cold." Gold argued that she had misinterpreted his intention. "I'd do that and more for Light if the situation demanded it. I just don't want him camping out in the cold. It'll ruin his sleep and his health in general." Namumu finally saw his reasoning and agreed. Light cut in, advising them not to worry about lodging. "We should focus on gathering useful intel instead." He acknowledged their forces could overrun the world without breaking a sweat, but it would be foolish to march into war without a proper strategy. "I theorize my home was invaded because the Federation suspected I was a magic master." He ordered them to get as much information as they could about the other nations and to figure out what was so important about a magic master that it made destroying a village worth it. "I vow to scorch the earth if I find out the reason was so evil and selfish that it cost so many people their lives," he said. He put on his fool's mask to disguise his appearance and took flight with Gold and Namu. "Light," Namumu asked, "what will we do when we arrive at Dagas?" Gold reminded her, "Address him as Dark while we're on the surface so the Federation doesn't figure out our plans." Namu apologized for her oversight. Light accepted her apology and revealed his plan. "I'm going to register as an adventurer named Dark at the Guild and raise my rank by doing quests. When my rank is high enough, I plan to get information from other high-level adventurers." Namimu spotted Dagas over the horizon. Light ordered them to return to the ground so they wouldn't cause a stir. As they walked through the forest, they stumbled upon a coach being robbed by dwarf bandits. The bandits ordered them to hand over their fancy belongings. A man named Colonel pleaded with them not to harm his son. The leader of the dwarves suddenly spotted something shiny from the corner of his eye, and he turned around to see Gold standing out in the open and ordered him to come over. Light gave Gold and Numu the order to restrain the dwarves. They made quick work of them. The colonel offered to give them a ride as payment for saving their lives. He assumed they were going to Dagas to explore the dungeon as a party of adventurers. Light explained, "We're not adventurers yet, but we're going to the town to register as one." The colonel admitted they were going to the right place. Dagas is on the border between the human kingdom and the elven queendom, which makes it a haven for the best dungeons. The town gets a lot of visitors, especially humans, who bring wealth into the town and keep my hotel business afloat. They arrived at the gate, and Light asked the colonel to drop them off. The colonel was reluctant, feeling he hadn't done enough to pay them back. Light waved off his hesitation, saying he had helped them by providing the location of the guild. The colonel offered to give them free accommodation at his hotel if they planned to stay the night. He left them at the gate, but his son pointed out, "It's unusual for newbies to be so strong." The colonel admitted he had a good point and concluded that unique circumstances must have made them that strong. Light walked into the city with Gold and Numu, who took in the sights. This was their first time on the surface. Gold noticed there were a lot of stalls selling weapons. Light explained that the city was home to many dwarves who specialized in blacksmithing. He took them to the guild. Nemu noticed most of the aspiring adventurers were humans. A demon folk passed by some humans gathered around the quest board, and they hastily got out of his way. Light figured out that humans were still treated as a lesser species because of their reaction to the demon. They headed to the reception desk. The receptionist classified Light as an F-rank adventurer. Namumu protested, arguing that Light should be nothing less than an S-rank adventurer. But the receptionist pointed out that all adventurers have to start from F-rank regardless of their skills or class. Light apologized to the receptionist for Namumu's attitude and agreed to register as an F-rank rank adventurer. They returned to the streets. Namu broke down, disappointed in herself for screwing up so much that Light had to apologize for her. Light consoled her and urged her not to be too hard on herself, but Gold teased her for causing him so much trouble. They headed to Colonel's hotel. His son led them inside to meet the Colonel at the reception. Light informed him they had come to make reservations, but pointed out that he wanted to make some special requests. He asked to rent the entire floor of the hotel for 1 month with complete privacy. He gave the Colonel some coins and offered to give him more if the payment wasn't enough. The Colonel pointed out that he couldn't take his money because they had saved their lives. Light asked him to consider the payment one of his requests and insisted he must accept it. The Colonel realized Light wouldn't allow him to provide the request for free, so he decided to accept his payment. He promised to arrange everything in strict accordance with his request. Light went up to his room and cast his silent magic jamming and detection spells to secure the top floor. He removed his mask and informed Gold and Numu they could relax now because they were safe from any magic item that could otherwise eavesdrop on them. Namumu didn't feel at ease because she was worried about Light's safety. She pointed out that he didn't have to parade on the surface as an adventurer because he could get hurt. She was certain he could have remained in the safety of his kingdom in the abyss and given them an order to carry out his instructions instead of risking his life to get his revenge. Light immediately cut her off and questioned her intentions because it looked like she was trying to interfere in his plan for revenge. Nimue clarified that she wasn't trying to do anything like that. Light approached her with his anger overflowing through his mana. She immediately knelt to Light and apologized for getting out of line. She asked him to forget she ever said anything. Gold burst out laughing and Light's anger dissipated. Gold explained that there are some scores that need to be settled personally, which is why Light has to carry out his revenge with his own hands without relying on his henchmen. Light saw that Namu was scared, so he apologized for scaring her. He acknowledged she only made such suggestions because she was scared for his safety. Nimue insisted she must take another pledge of allegiance because she had fallen way out of line. Light reluctantly agreed. Light never liked that a kiss to the foot was used as a gesture of respect to show allegiance. Gold cut in and teased Namumu for having such a weird kink. Namumu pointed out it was common practice for all of them when swearing allegiance to Light, but Gold insisted she was just using it as an excuse to live out her wild fantasies. The next day, the city was so lively that Light couldn't help but look forward to exploring the dungeon. They arrived at the dungeon, but were met with a long queue of adventurers waiting to explore it, so they got in line. Gold pointed out there were no elves in sight, despite the dungeon being so close to their borders. Light assumed their absence was a result of the dispute between the Dwarf Kingdom and the Elven Queendom. Namumu commended Light's knowledge because he always had answers to the toughest questions. 3 people suddenly cut into the line in front of some adventurers. Namu got angry. Light assessed them and figured out the guy carrying the bag was the servant, while the middle guy was a decently trained fighter who still had many weaknesses. The front guy caught his eye because he looked like a seasoned fighter with a hefty weapon concealed on his back. The rookie adventurers whose line had been cut wondered what to do, as they didn't want to risk getting into a fight with people from another species. Light intervened and called out to the hooded fighter. He scolded him for cutting the line because it was wrong, but the fighter was angry that Light had the audacity to address him like that. Light pointed out he was only addressing him because he cut the line, but the fighter insisted Light didn't have the right to talk to him because he didn't know who he was. Light admitted he didn't know who he was because he was hiding his identity behind a hood, but pointed out that if he was presumably a famous person, that was all the more reason why he shouldn't be cutting lines. Gold and Amumu backed Light up and warned the fighter to go back to the start of the line. Kita was so angry he attempted to draw his sword, but the middleman stopped him. He reminded him that causing a scene would ruin their plans, especially if he drew his sword, because he was certain to cause great destruction. Ko restrained himself and walked back to the start of the line, but he promised to make Light pay for embarrassing him. The humans around Light commended him for standing up for them. They pointed out they had had enough of being treated like they didn't exist, and they thanked him for speaking up against their discrimination. That one of the rookies stepped up to thank Light and explained they were too scared to say anything because they were scared of starting a fight they couldn't finish. Light waved off their thanks because his reaction also served his interest since he was behind them. One of the rookies allowed his intrusive thought to get the better of him and wondered aloud if Gold's armor was made of gold. The others scolded him for being so dumb, but he insisted on an answer because he knew they were curious as well. Gold was about to answer, but Nemu cut him off and informed the kids his armor was fake because its point pointless to make armor out of something as soft as gold. The rookies apologized for their friend's curiosity, but Light explained Gold chose to wear gold armor to make him the perfect example of a knight in shining armor. The lead rookie wondered if it was their first time adventuring in the dungeon. Light admitted it was. He wondered how the lead could tell. The lead explained that people usually camp in the dungeon because it's so vast. He figured out it was their first time because they didn't have camping supplies, like the other adventurers who had explored the dungeon before. Light thanked them for the information, but the rookies felt bad they couldn't help them out more. The dungeon master called in the rookie party, and they said goodbye to Light before heading in. Light realized they were so used to having an item box for storage that they didn't bother with supplies. Namu suggested they carry fake luggage next time so they would look the part and not give the impression they were overpowered. The dungeon master called in Light's party, and they headed inside. Light pointed out this was the first time he was entering a dungeon besides the Abyss. He was curious about how dungeons work because each of them has a different structure. Light pointed out they needed to scan the core of each dungeon to figure out the secret behind it, but even Ellie couldn't manage to pull it off. He explained that dungeons are filled with mana that gets stronger the deeper it goes. This creates the variety of traps and monsters in different dungeons, making the possibilities endless. They walked out on a ledge with a view of the dungeon. Light acknowledged that dungeons are a world of their own. Light cast flight and conceal magic, and they began flying over the vast expanse of land. He also used clairvoyance to find the shortest route to the next floor. Gold praised him for his IQ. However, he pointed out their exploration would be boring because they wouldn't get the full experience of the dungeon. Meanwhile, Kaito entered the dungeon and immediately drew his sword. He let out his anger on some unfortunate monsters who approached him. He was angry at Light's insolence to talk down on a white knight from the Elven Kingdom who has the blood of a maestro. Yanok calmed Kao down and reminded him they were there for the troll on the 3rd floor. He advised him to shove his anger and focus on their objective, but Kaito shut him up because he was the reason Light got away so easily after insulting him. Kido also blamed his low level for his predicament. Yannick pointed out he was already at the maximum level of elves, so there was nothing he could do about it. Kido ignored Yannick's explanation and vowed to get strong enough to be worthy of his title as a legendary hero, so he could crush whoever got in his way. Yannick sympathized with Kaito because he understood how he felt. He was exiled from the Elven Kingdom because of his unusual research, but he was determined to honor his alliance with Kaito and put his research to good use by helping him level up. However, Kaito secretly held a grudge against Yanok and planned to dispose of him after using him to get what he wanted. Later that day, Light and his party defeated some trolls on the 3rd floor. He decided to call it a day after collecting their magic drops as evidence for the guild. They began to fly back, but Light noticed the rookie party surrounded by goblins. Gold figured out the 3 rookies standing together were fighters, while the rookie at the back was their healer. He was certain they wouldn't have problems. But Light spotted another threat the rookie party hadn't noticed. The rookie party disposed of the goblins, but Light took down a bush snake creeping up behind them. He warned them never to let their guard down, even if the area looked safe. The rookies thanked him for saving them, but Nemu suddenly sensed they had company. Great bush wolves suddenly burst out of the forest. The rookies were surprised because they were supposed to live deep in the forest. The rookies decided to retreat because they couldn't fight the wolves. But Light ordered them to stand their ground because they were not a threat. The wolves ran past them. The rookies wondered what the threat was. A mutated mantis emerged from the forest behind the wolves and faced off against them. The kids are horrified because this monster was said to have been exterminated 10 years ago. Their leader tells Light that they just need help throwing it off balance so they can run away. But Light has a different idea. He points out that they just want to run away anyway. So Light asked their group of his team could just hunt the beast themselves. Light's warriors don't fear this monster at all, and they simply measure it up. It seems to be around level 500, and they determine that it won't even be a challenge. The kids are sure that fighting this thing will be just like throwing their lives away, but Light assures them that they will be fine. Nemu declares that it's time to squash the bug, but Gold is the first to take action. He launches a barrage of attacks, but he's disappointed when the mantis is able to take it all without even receiving a scratch. Light wants to test it next, so he uses a fire arrow card, but the monster just fires it back at them. The young group is terrified as they fear that their lives will come to an end. So, their leader instructs their mage to back up Light's team. She seems horrified at first, but it turns out that she's actually actually just in awe of Light. He was able to cast a combat class spell with no incantation, and she can't understand why the others aren't freaking out after seeing that. The leader says that there's no time to be impressed because they have to help Light's team, but Gold just laughs at this. He tells the youngsters to just watch and learn because he's going to show them how a knight wields their weapon on the battlefield. Gold is sure that they think just like everyone else does. Typically, a shield is used for defense and a sword is used for offense. Gold, however, says that this is not always the case. He declares that all it takes is a well-timed counter to turn a shield into a mighty weapon, and he uses his shield to shatter the monster's powerful claw. His next lesson is to use a sword when you have the enemy on the ropes. His next attack cuts the monster's leg off, and Gold explains that battles are all about creativity and skill. The kids realize that this guy wasn't just all talk, and Light announces that it's his turn. He uses his fire arrow once more, but this time he alters its path so the mantis can't block it. Light does this with even more arrows, and he rains down fire upon the beast. The mage girl is absolutely losing her mind after seeing this because Light is somehow able to control 30 arrows at one time. The arrows still remain in its body, so Light assembles them to break off the beast's other arm. Light declares that it's time to end this battle, but the mantis runs for its pitiful life. Light credits it for being smart enough to do so, but it's too late. The monster picked a fight with the wrong people, so Light uses his firewall card to create a massive wall of fire. The beast has no way to escape, and the mage girl still can't believe her eyes, because Light is now casting tactical class spells with no incantation. Her friends have never seen her like this before, but she can't help herself because the stuff Light is doing is crazy. The mantis flies in the air in the hopes of getting away, but Nemo's right in its tail. She tells the beast to be grateful for being able to keep her master's attention for so long, but she slices the monster into pieces. Gold mocks her for the attack because while it was very powerful, she also made a mess of all the useful parts of the beast. New quickly realizes her mistake because now they won't be able to sell any of it. The three of them act very casually in the kids' eyes, but their power is undeniable. They made quick work of a legendary monster, so the kids can only wonder who they are. After a while, one of these kids announces that they hit the jackpot. They were looting the mantis, so the kid found the magic gem, and Gold tells everyone that they're lucky that Nemo didn't slice it into a million pieces. Light is relieved because this magic gem will surely help him rank up at the guild, but a kid just wants to know if there's some kind of famous party. He wonders if they're B rank, A rank, or even Srank, and he is shocked when Light reveals that they're all actually Franks. The mage girl makes herself useful by using a water spell and telling the others that they can use it to wash their hands. After cleaning up, Light thanks them for helping him get his hands clean, but the kids are much more grateful for Light's team saving their lives. In return, the young adventurers offer to share a camp for the night, but Light doesn't want to burden them. The leader points out that the sun will be setting soon, and this place gets far more dangerous at night. Besides that, he points out that his little sister is itching to talk with Light about magic. Light takes them up on the offer, so that night they all enjoy a delicious meal. The mage girl is delighted to hear that Light's parents are both mages because it helps explain why Light is so talented. The girl's name is Maya, and Light compliments her on her magic as well. Maya, of course, points out that she can't cast voiceless spells like Light can, so they are not on the same level. She becomes furious when her big brother doesn't know how impressive that is, so she gives him a little lesson. Ma starts by saying that impressive hardly begins to even describe how amazing what Light did is. She then goes on to explain that there are 3 classes of spells in magic. Combat class spells, such as Fire Arrow and Ice Sword, are designed for use against a single target. Tactical class spells such as Firewall are designed to affect a much wider area. The final one is strategical class spells, which are ones powerful enough to have a global impact, like tsunamis, earthquakes, and meteorites. This is different from the other categories because they take a whole group of mages, compiling mana and reciting an incantation to pull off. For Dragonoots, Elves, Dark Elves, and Demon King, casting advanced spells is easy. It should be impossible for humans to do, but Light is somehow able to cast one without even seeing an incantation. It's completely unheard of, and Ma can't emphasize enough just how legendary that is. The leader doesn't understand too much about all the magic stuff, but what he can tell is that Light seems to be a good person. Besides that, he tells his sister that her magic is pretty good too, because she was able to get a referral to the Magecraft Academy. The academy is in a place called Douche, which is a nation that was mutually created by all the races. The Magecraft Academy there is the most prestigious one in the world. So, Gold is sure that Maya will soon be impressed expressing herself. Unfortunately, Elio explains that they lost their parents a while ago, so she never actually got to go to the academy. That is why they formed their party with their oldest friends to make enough money to get by. They have done well so far, so Ai's new goal is to make enough money adventuring to send Mia to the academy. Their friends also share this goal, and Mia couldn't be happier to have such good people around her. Their closeness reminds Light of his little sister, and Light assures them that they will achieve their goal. Elio wonders why Light is adventuring, but of course, he can't tell them the whole truth. Our heroes tell them that Light's parents lost their lives in a house fire, and it also left Light with horrible burns on his face. This is why he wears a mask at all times, and why he's on a journey to find a potion that can heal him. As for his warriors, they say that they're repaying a debt that they owe to Light's parents. That's a pretty tragic story, but one of the kids just wants to know if Gold and Nu are secretly dating. This is not the case, however, as Gold says that Nemu could never match his golden shine, and No declares that her heart belongs to Light. Elsewhere, Kaido finishes eliminating the giant trolls that he was searching for. Yannick compliments him on a job well done, but Kaido is furious. He explains that his grandest sword is a legendary weapon of prestige, not some butcher's knife for carving up low-level trash monsters. Kaido hates having to do this kind of grunt work, but Yannick reminds him that collecting these samples is vital for his research. Kaido wants to keep getting stronger, and Yannick's research is trying to find a way to surpass the growth limits imposed on each race. They have eliminated several monsters up to this point, but Yannick declares that the next step is to gather the primary material for his experiment, and that is humans. This part actually excites Kaido, and he declares that it's time for the hunt to begin. The next day, the guild receptionist is incredibly grateful because Light has brought the guild another big haul of gems. They are super valuable, and everyone in the guild has been talking about Light's party. Nemo points out again that Light deserves to be SCX rank, but Light is just ready to get paid. The receptionist wants to make sure that her most valuable adventure is happy, so she offers to give them a meal while they wait. She even offers to make it a full course meal, but Le is not interested. Afterwards, Light's warriors discuss how that receptionist has completely changed her attitude after realizing how valuable Light is. Nemo wants to teach everyone a lesson for doubting him, but Light reminds her that they're keeping the violence to a minimum. At least for now. As they walk, Light notices that everyone in town is talking about them, and they have even given his party the name Black Emily. Some guys want to ask Light some questions, but Nemo was very protective of him. The guys introduce themselves as Sullivan and Gilbert, and they explain that they heard about the Mantis battle. They have also heard about them reaching floor 5 of the dungeon, but that part is unbelievable to Gilbert. He points out that they have been trying to get that far for years, so there's no way that this new Frank party could have gotten there so fast. Nemu takes offense to them doubting Light, but Sullivan explains that they, and many other people, are actually rooting for them. Light doesn't really understand why, so Sullivan points out that someone has to prove that humans can compete with the other races. Even better, they hope that the Black MLI can even surpass the other races to really humble them. After they leave though, Light overhears a group of other races talking about how humans say the dumbest things. They believe that humans will never be able to surpass them, and they are certain that the battle against the Mantis was all a lie. The part they believe the least is that a human was able to cast a tactical class spell with no incantation. Gold is disappointed to see just how little respect they get from the other races. So, he determines that they just have to show their power by getting results. Our heroes enter the dungeon again, and on their way back to the 5th floor, they'd run into the other group. Maya has a gift for Dark, and she explains that it's something her grandmother taught her to make before she passed away. Maya really wanted to do something special, so she reveals that it's an ointment for burns. It won't get rid of the scarring, but she hopes that it can at least help him with the pain a little. She fears that he might not want it, but he's actually just shocked by her kindness, and he accepts the gift. Elio reveals that she spent several days trying to think of the perfect gift, but this just embarrasses his little sister. Light has been thinking of something himself, and he just now decides that she deserves it. Light returns the favor, but Maya doesn't feel right accepting something so nice. Light insists, however, as he explains that her gift to him really touched his heart. Everyone compliments his great taste, and Maya promises to cherish it for the rest of her life. That night, however, Nemu wonders if it was really okay for Light to give Mia that gift. It turns out that it was no ordinary gift because the bracelet Light gave her was actually a double, super rare item. It's called the Wish Bracelet, and Nemo doesn't think that something so valuable should have been given away in exchange for some homemade ointment. Like, casually says that he thought it was a good deal, and Gold agrees with him. That Wish Bracelet is an item that can make small miracles happen if one wishes strongly enough for for it, and it's pretty much priceless gold. Can tell that Light picked it out especially for Maya, so he tells Light that it was very considerate of him. Nemo's convinced, so Gold reminds her to be less materialistic. When they reach the 5th floor, Light is pleased to see that there's no one else here. Gold agrees that attention is the last thing they need right now. But Nemo points out that Gold is the one that loves attention. Light leaves them in charge of finding the Yetis they need to defeat, and he once again shows the infinite possibilities of his powers. He uses another card, and this one teleports him from the dungeon all the way back to his castle. His other warriors have been eagerly awaiting his return, so they all greet Master Light. Light explains Operation Adventure is going well, and it has been a very nice change of pace. He's also in a great mood, because he made some friends, and they demonstrated that there's still some good in this world. As for Operation Revenge, the girls explain that they're very close to setting everything up, and it will only require a little more time before everything is in place. Lee compliments Ellie for having everything under control, and he determines that he probably didn't even need to come back. As for Mei, Lee instructs her to continue managing everything in the abyss. Ayuki will keep scouting the ancient forest, and Nizuna is eager to hear what his orders are for her. Light thinks about how she's a bad fit when it comes to carefully laid out plans, so he just tells her to keep everyone safe while he's away. He says that they can never know when a super powerful bad guy will show up, so Nizuna promises to not let anyone get hurt. Ellie can't believe that Nizuna is really okay with such a simple order, but Nizuna points out that she can't do her real job until Ellie finishes up her prep work. Ellie assures her that she will get it done soon because Light deserves the best, and Light is pleased to hear this. His next target is Sasha, and he can't wait to enjoy the look on her face when he comes for revenge. Light just knows that she will be miserable, and that day can come soon enough. Back in the dungeon, we see that Gilbert and Sullivan are on the 3rd floor. They discuss the Black Montley party, because that group is still a big mystery. According to rumors, the guy in the black mask was able to cast a tactical class spell with no incantation when he defeated the Mantis. Gilbert refuses to believe that and says that even if it is true, then the Messiah has to either be a legendary knight or some reincarnated hero from the past. Sullivan really hopes that this is the case, because the humans need a champion that can topple the society that is run by human-hating discriminators. Sullivan goes to take a leak, but when he returns, he's horrified to see that his group was massacred. It was all Kaido's doing, and he explains how disgusted he is by these humans. Sullivan's horrified by the gruesome scene, but he reminds himself to keep his guard up because this guy's obviously dangerous. Something is off because Sullivan thinks about how they're in the wetlands right now. Water is everywhere, so his group should have noticed splashing sounds as the attacker approached. This obviously isn't what happened. However, because the bodies of his teammates don't show any signs of them putting up a fight, Sullivan thinks about how he's sure that this guy used some kind of spell. And we see that Kaido is furious as always. He points out that even the lowliest of worms would react to their friends being stomped on. And he wants to see a reaction out of Sullivan. Sullivan just continues to think. However, as he determines that even just one elf will be too much for him to handle. His only goal right now is to escape somehow, so he can report this to the Adventurers Guild. Kaido just keeps disrespecting Gilbert's body as he wants to antagonize Sullivan, but Sullivan just apologizes to his old friend. He uses a smokescreen to get away, and he thinks about how most combat spells are completely worthless if the attacker can't see their opponent. Besides that, this entire floor is like Sullivan's backyard, because he has been coming here for years. He wants to make sure that Kaido gets punished for what he has done, but he's shocked when he gets attacked by something. He wonders if it was magic, but that should be impossible. It was impossible to see anything in the smoke, and tells that he was hit by something physical. Just then, he sees that Kettle is floating above it all, and Sullivan can't believe that he will lose because of such a cheap trick. Yannick arrives to knock him out, and he calls Sullivan a piece of trash for trying to run away. Yannick then expresses how disappointed he is, because he told Kaido that he needed living humans for his experiment. Kaido eliminated them all except for one, but Kaido thinks that that should be enough. Unfortunately, it's not as Yo points out, that successful experiments are only built from repeated failures. Kaido agrees to be more careful from now on, but declares if any trash human does anything to upset him, then he won't hold back. Yannick, on the other hand, believes that humans actually have value, but only as lab animals for his experiments. He declares that they will make humans understand the roles vermin like them play in the grand scheme of this world. Thanks for watching my recap. Make sure to like the video. Hello friends, write to us from which country you are watching, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel and activate the bell button. The demand for promotion, Nemumu returned to the guild, immediately demanding that they raise Light's rank. The receptionist nervously told her, "I understand your frustration, and we just made a special exception the other day to promote him straight to D rank from F rank." Nemumu pressed the issue. Is that the best you can do, despite all he's achieved? The receptionist reminded her that they had a system in place. Even so, Nemumu defiantly claimed, "My master's greatness cannot be measured, so he deserves nothing less than the SEX rank." The receptionist apologized, explaining that there was nothing she could do because not enough time had passed since he first registered as an adventurer. She offered a glimmer of hope, however. If they achieved another big feat of some kind, I could do something about it. The scene shifts to the inn once they were back at the inn. Light brought up a troubling subject, mentioning that there was an adventurer killer on the loose, though he suspected it might be a trick. Gold immediately saw the opportunity. That sounds like a good way to rank up to him, but Nemumu quickly pointed out the lack of intelligence. There's no information to go on since the suspect is still unidentified. Gold then asked Light if he could use his gift to pull a specialized card that could track them down. Light doubted their luck, explaining, "The cards I get from the gacha are randomized, so I doubt we could get that lucky." Nemumu suggested calling in backup from the abyss, but Gold dismissed the idea as useless effort. Light ended the discussion by noting, "This adventurer killer has only been targeting humans, so we can't just let them go unchecked." The sudden arrival just then. The three of them sensed something coming, and Light immediately donned his mask. A portal suddenly opened before them, and Light was shocked to see Mia falling from it. He quickly caught her in his arms. The bracelet he had given her as a gift suddenly broke and fell to the floor. Mia was murmuring in her sleep, clearly disturbed, saying, "I have to hurry and inform him what happened." Light used magic to heal her body, then grimly announced that he was going to pry into her memories. He released an SR card of hypnosis. The scene shifts to the dungeon, the past. We are pulled into the past, deep within the dungeon. Some adventurers were warning Io and his group that an adventurer killer was roaming free, and so far, all victims had been human. Io asked if they were sure it wasn't a monster, but the adventurers were certain, explaining that no monster can cast multiple spells with different attributes. Mia worriedly told her brother, "We wouldn't stand a chance if that's true." The adventurers urged them to leave and spread the word. Io decided they must leave immediately. There's not much time before the sunset, so we have to hurry. However, after a while walking, he realized everyone was exhausted from their long trek. Night had fallen. They hadn't even covered half the distance, and Io knew they couldn't risk camping there. As they walked, they unfortunately ran into Keo and Yanok, hooded figures, whom the children couldn't immediately recognize as elves. Mia innocently suggested that maybe they hadn't heard the news. Io informed them of the danger. There's been a string of murders around here by an adventurer killer. It's dangerous for everyone, so they all should consider leaving the dungeon like the others. Keo quickly understood why the number of adventurers had dropped off. Yanok thanked them for the information, remarking, "You should have put more effort into covering it up." Keo agreed, commenting, "I never expected the peons would react so quickly." Yanok admitted that the Adventurer Guild was more of a well-oiled machine than they gave them credit for, completely clueless. Io asked them what they were talking about. Yanok simply complained about having to spell everything out for humans. Keo agreed as he unsheathed his sword, sneering, "These worms are always dumb as dirt." The moment Keo uncovered his face, the kids froze, recognizing the adventurer killer. Io, Gimra, and Wardy immediately told Mia to run away. "We will fight him and buy you time to escape." Keo scoffed, irritated that bottom feeders like them thought they could buy time against a clearly superior opponent. Enraged, Keo used his sword to carve a deep wound across Io's chest, making Mia cry and scream in horror. Gimra and Wardy rushed to defend their leader, only for Keo to do the same to them. Mia was paralyzed, but Wardy, managing to stand, screamed, "You have to run far away!" Gimra, hearing Wardy's desperate cry, gathered the strength to stand back up. The two boys decided to fight and give Mia a chance to live, even though the battle was clearly lost. Yanok tried to stop Keo, but it was too late. Both Gimra and Wardy fell dead under the sword, eliciting another agonizing scream from Mia. Yanok sighed, scolding Keo. "You can't use them in your experiments unless they're alive." Keo defended himself. "I already said I would grind these worms into meat if they wasted any time fighting back." He clarified that he left the girl alive. Yanok conceded that human mages like Mia were especially valuable, but those boys were also indispensable to him. Keo approached Mia, promising Yanok to be more careful next time, but asked, "Can I have a little fun with her?" Yanok, completely uninterested, told him to help himself, but warned, I expect you to keep her alive. Mia shakily begged him to stay away, but Keo didn't understand her fear. You have caught a lucky break because a future legendary hero such as myself is willing to use you for pleasure, so you should be cheering and singing with glee right now. Mia was entirely frozen in fear until her brother's voice made her snap out of it. Ilio surprisingly managed to stand up, using his last shred of strength to tell her, "Run away." Yanok was amazed by Io's fierce clinging to life. Keo, this is one human that I must insist he captures alive, because he's a prime specimen for my experiment. Io knew he was dead, but saving Mia was all that mattered. Despite the pain, he gave her a kind smile. Run away again! Get out of there and live a long life. Enough for all of us. Mia finally found the courage to stand up and run. Yanok urged Keo to hurry and capture her, but also reminded him, "You also can't kill Io," Keo complained. "These worms are harder to catch than they are to kill." Io, murmuring words of strategy, thought, "Battles are about creativity and skill, so I have to use my head and make moves to throw him off." Keo didn't understand what he was saying, but Io was focused on the teachings Gold had given them. Defending with a shield and attacking with a sword wasn't wrong, but it wasn't the best approach either. Remembering Gold's lesson, Io did the fearless. He threw his sword at Keo. As Keo dodged, Io transformed his shield into a weapon and struck him in the face. Keo fell backward in shock. A mere human child had managed to strike him. Io laughed, looking down with a satisfied smile. Keo's rage exploded instantly, and without thought, he impaled Io with his blade. Yanok was about to complain, but Keo screamed, "Nobody gets away with punching my majestic face. I'll make him suffer pain worse than death." Yanok stopped him quickly. "You have to hurry after the specimen that escaped, because things will get complicated if the people on the outside learn about what we've been doing." Keo reluctantly agreed, finding Mia quickly and blocking her path with his blades. "It seems you need to be taught a lesson on how to properly act in the presence of a future legendary hero." He explained that he could create and control multiple blades, for he wielded the Elven Quendam's Phantasma class weapon, the legendary sword known as Grandius. He demonstrated by creating multiple blades as he approached her, declaring, "Catching human worms is a simple task for me." Mia quickly stood up. Knowing she couldn't waste the time her brother and friends had bought, she used her magic to create multiple ice swords, but Keo destroyed them instantly. He stopped her run in no time. It's time for you to give up and relish in the glory of pleasuring a legendary hero." Despite the overwhelming situation, Mia showed no fear this time. "You're not a legendary hero, because that only describes people who are as kind as they are strong, like Light. You're a bully who just picks on the weak." That word, bully, hit a nerve, making Keo recall the bitter comments he'd received when he was kicked out of the White Knights for hitting his level limit. Mia suddenly called him a spineless loser, and Keo completely lost control, attacking her with several blades. Knowing she couldn't escape, Mia focused on one thought. She couldn't die here. She had to survive and reach Light. That intense wish activated the power of the bracelet, and Mia vanished through a portal. The vow of vengeance Light tightened his grip on the broken bracelet after witnessing the horrific memory. While Mia remained asleep, he and his companions set out. From the other side, Yanok was using healing magic on Io, intent on not wasting such an excellent specimen. Keo suddenly appeared, desperately searching for Mia, thinking she would double back. "I can't believe you lost her." Yanok fumed. "It's ridiculous that a former member of the White Knights got bested by a mere child." Keo insisted. "She simply vanished into thin air. There's no way I could have known she had a magic teleportation item on her." Yanok dismissed this, believing no human would possess something so valuable, but Keo was sure. "That only means we're in deep trouble," Yanok worried. If she reached the guild, word would spread to the Elven Quendam, and they would soon discover the location of the stolen Grandius. Keo's expression shifted to fear. He knew the White Knights would come for them, along with their infernal captain, whom Yanok noted was beyond level 3000, and all the knights in his command are in the thousands. Plus, they have weapons on par with Grandius. Keo threw a tantrum, but Yanok calmed him, suggesting he just needed to complete his research to surpass his level limit and solve all their problems. Keo instantly regained his confidence, and Yanok suggested they find someplace else to finish up. Just then, Light's voice cut through the air. "You're not going anywhere!" Keo recognized him, but couldn't fathom how anyone could sneak up on a level 1 Thief 100 like himself. Light ignored them momentarily, properly closing Gimra and Ward's eyes. Gold informed him that Io still had signs of life, his wounds sloppily patched up. Yanok hadn't even noticed when they took Io's body. Light used magic to heal Io completely, wondering aloud aloud why anyone would commit such acts. These kids stood firm in a world of awful discrimination, doing their absolute best to make an honest living while supporting Mia's dreams for the future. They didn't deserve any of this. He mourned that it was too late now, noting that perhaps under different circumstances, they all could have grown to be close friends. "I'm going to make them pay for this," Light promised. Yanok tried to deflect blame. "You've gotten the wrong idea. After all, I'm the one who treated Io and saved him from death's doorstep, so you can't possibly blame us," Light informed them. "I took the girl who you were chasing under my protection, but I haven't told the guild anything." Ko laughed loudly. "I just need to kill all of them, alongside that little girl in that case. Things always go my way, because I'm a legendary hero blessed by the monarch." "That's a funny thing for a scumbag to say," Light retorted. He clarified his intentions. "You both are mine to smite, so I won't let the guild have you. You will suffer what the kids did and more. So much so that you'll be begging for the sweet release of death." Light swore upon his name. "When all is said and done, I'll tear the life from them with my own hands." He asked Nemumu and Gold to stay out of the fight and quietly approached the elves. Ko, confused by the look on Light's face, told him, "Human worms don't get to sneer at me like that." The fight for vengeance, Ko jumped at him, intending to kill, but Light easily stopped his sword with his staff. "Is that all you've got?" Yanoka was shocked as Ko desperately continued trying to hit him. Light barely moved, blocking every attack with his staff. Yanok stared in disbelief, certain that there's no way a human can do something like that, especially not a child. Gold simply observed, unimpressed, while Nemumu noted that the elf was already getting bored, doing nothing but swinging his sword in rage. Light simply hit Ko's sword with his staff, throwing him off balance. "How pathetic," he declared, before hitting Ko in the stomach, making him fall breathless. While Ko coughed and recovered, Light warned him, "I wish you would do a little better than that, otherwise I might just kill you on accident." Ko struggled to stand, screaming, "No lowly human trash gets to make fun of me!" He used Grandius with no hesitation, casting several blades into the air, ready to attack. "Weep and tremble! This is the power of a Phantasma class weapon, the legendary Grandius! You'll regret ever messing with me!" Light quickly dodged the attacks, which crashed into the ground, creating explosions and fire. And he admitted, this attack definitely has some oomph to it, but not nearly enough. Nemumu noted that all the blades were enchanted with magic, and Gold added that each seemed to have a different attribute, but they knew it was no challenge for their master. Ko suddenly appeared behind Light, but Light easily blocked his sword with his staff again. Yanok watched, horrified. Ko had used a summoned sword as a foothold to sneak behind him, yet the child withstood the attack. He could not understand how a human was capable of taking on an elf wielding a Phantasma class weapon. Ko, throwing a tantrum, called Light a cheater. "You dressed like a mage, but it's clear you're actually a warrior." Light assured him that he truly was a mage, but Ko was certain that no mage could fight on an equal level with him. Gold couldn't. Blamed Ko for the confusion, noting Light was one of a kind, while Nemumu supplied the true title, Unlimited Card Mage is what he is. Light decided to counterattack, casting several ice swords into the sky. One by one, they completely destroyed Ko's blades. The scene was impossible for Yanok, who couldn't believe Light was using ice swords to pick off the clones of Grandius. It required magic power, far beyond any elven mage. Ko continued desperately attacking with Grandius, but Light used the ice sword as a barrier. "Are you finished with your tantrum?" Light asked. Despite the clear power difference, Ko only grew angrier, claiming that the maestro of old was bequeathed Grandius by the heavens above, so it's a royal sword that surpasses any other. Light stopped at this, asking, "Do you know about the maestro?" Ko simply started laughing. "It's clear you know, because I was born with the blood of a maestro in me, so they call me the sub-maestro."
The episode begins with Sasha returns home with her maid, and along the way, the maid comments on how good they look as a couple. However, their path is soon blocked when a human slave drops a bunch of food on the road because an elf started whipping him for no reason. And the only thing Sasha can think of right now is how useless all humans are. It's going to take a while to move all the food out of the road, so she stares out the window in boredom while she waits, but that's when she sees a familiar silhouette walking down the alleyway. Sheer dread takes hold of her as she darts out of her carriage to make sure that wasn't really Light. But after searching the entire alley, she finds no sign of him. So she starts trying to convince herself that there's no way that could have been Light because he died years ago. However, As she turns around, she finds a note stuck to the wall telling her to come to the giant tower, and it was signed by Light, so she starts freaking out. Her maid soon comes running to check on her and finds Sasha on the ground in despair, because if Light really is alive, then she's going to lose everything she gained from killing him, including all to reward money, her noble status, and even her engagement to Miko. Meanwhile, from a nearby rooftop, Light and Ellie watch Sasha panicking on the floor, and this is a nice start to Light's revenge. But Ellie has much worse in store for Sasha. But she's not the only one with a heavy dose of karma heading their way, because over in the White Knight camp, two of the knights, Naya and Kia, are having the time of their lives fermenting a human slave by using him as a human dartboard. And while that's going on, Charette over here is shoving his face deep in the chest of his human slave, and she is forced to play along because she doesn't want to end up as the next dartboard. This meeting was called to discuss the fact that after Kyo disappeared with the holy sword Grandius, he apparently went around killing adventurers and was defeated by a human. So the higher-ups want them to go in and clean up his mess. Sasha doesn't understand why they should have to deal with the problem that Kato created, but Mus gets up and reminds him that Kato was one of their members, so they are directly responsible for anything he does. While Charette is still busy fraternizing, the screams of the man getting tortured are starting to annoy him, so he tells Nia and Keita to cut it out already and just kill him. But they refuse because they are having a lot of fun. They bought the slave with their own money, so they should have the right to do whatever they want with him. And they find it way more disturbing that Charlotte enjoys making out with humans so much. Muse tells everyone to stop arguing so much because they are White Knight, and personally he believes that it is his duty to give humans a swift and fleeting death so they don't have to suffer through their pathetic lives. But they don't agree with his ideology at all. Throughout this whole squabble, the Knight Captain has been trying to keep his cool, but the others are really getting on his nerves now, so he tells them to be quiet. And the anger in his voice carries so much weight that it literally has all of them quaking in fear and even give a bird a heart attack. Now that they are all quiet, he tells Naha and Kay that it's bad form to torment their victims so much, so he tells Charfet to put the poor guy out of his misery. Charfet obeys the captain's command and points a finger at the man, and in an instant, his head is blown clean off his body. The captain then tells Nia and Kaya to get rid of the corpse, and the woman on Charlotte's lap is terrified by what just happened, but he tells her there's no need to worry because he'd never do that to her. He then says she is free to leave now, so she gets up and takes her leave. And once she's gone, the captain tells Shafet that he is free to have whatever hobbies he chooses, but he should limit his fraternizing with humans. Elves are known for mating with human masters to create submasters so he can go thinning out the bloodline with his affair. However, Shara tells the captain there's nothing to worry about because he was never actually going to have a child with his slave in the first place. In fact, he has gotten pretty bored of her, so he was thinking of shooting her in the back later, and he invites the captain to join in on the fun, but he declines because while he doesn't like humans, he doesn't particularly enjoy torturing them either. For now, his only priority is to deal with the situation regarding Kyo, because he can't let anyone embarrass their queen. Later that night, Sasha is laying in bed when all of a sudden she hears a loud noise, and when she goes to look out of her window, she finds a giant tower emerging from the forest, and the sight of it sends chills down her spine because she recalls that Light's letter told her to meet him at a tower, and this must be what it was referring to. The next morning, a slave trader is driving into town with a wagon full of human children, but all of a sudden a rock chimera appears out of nowhere, and the slave trader is terrified for his life, so he runs away, leaving the kids to their fate. That the monster doesn't actually seem interested in hurting them. A little while later, the elves in the city have started experiencing a shortage in food supply because all the trade routes are infested with monsters. Now, the elves think it has something to do with the giant tower that randomly appeared recently. The elves think it has something to do with the giant tower that randomly appeared recently, and the nation is apparently investigating it, but they are short-handed at the moment, so they are offering adventurers good money for any information on it. Light, Gold, and Nemu are also in the crowd adventurers. And after a few minutes, a pair of elves notice Nemyumu. And even though she's human, they think she's hot. So they walk over and try to convince her to ditch Light and join their party instead. Namu restrains herself and simply tells the two to get lost because Light is the only one she will ever serve. And Light tells them they had better give up while they still can, but the elves get offended that a human would dare to reject them. So one of them throws a punch. However, However, Light casts a lightning arrow to force him back, and as soon as everyone realizes what just happened, they recognize him and the others as the new party of humans from Dagas who are apparently extremely powerful. Knowing that they can't beat Light, the elves back off, and Light is pleased with how this turned out because news of his presence in the elf nation is bound to spread now. Meanwhile, out in the forest, a group of elf adventurers decided to take on the quest to gather information about the giant tower. But to be safe, they forced a little human girl to come with them so they can use her as a diversion if they get attacked. After all, the only thing human slays are good for is to act as bait, and when the girl falls to the ground because she's too exhausted to move, the elves threaten to beat her senseless until she gets back on her feet. They start complaining amongst themselves about how lazy the livestock is, but all of a sudden, one of them notices a drop of saliva land on his hand, and in the next moment, his head is completely chomped off by the rock chimera. The chimera then takes a bite out of the other elves, and the little girl falls to her knees in terror because she thinks she's going to be next. But as the monster approaches and takes a whiff of her, it realizes she is a human, so it backs off and walks away. The girl breathes a sigh of relief because she thinks she is finally safe, but just then a group of Skera-looking men come out of the woods and start talking about how lucky they are to find one out here. The girl is on the brink of crying because she thinks she's about to be enslaved again, but to her surprise, the men dump a bottle of healing potion on her and start talking about getting her a set of proper clothes and some food. It turns out that they are actually part of Light's team and they were tasked with rescuing as many human slaves as they can. So the leader of the group contacts Yuiki to organize a drop-off at the secure location. Meanwhile, up on the tower, Uki is hard at work controlling all the monsters in the area to make sure they only target the elves that are harming humans. When all of a sudden, Ellie comes over to check on her. She asks Uki how she's holding up, since this is the first time she has had to control so many monsters on the surface at once, but she says she's doing fine. Still, Ellie is worried that there might be issues with the mission or that this might all be a test from Light to see how they handle moral dilemmas, but Uki tells her she's overthinking it because everything has gone according to plan so far. Just then, she gets a message from the ground team, and they tell her they are ready to make the drop-off. So once they arrive at the village, they leave the girl in the care of the village, so she should be safe from now on. And she is very grateful for all they have done for her. As they are returning to their base, they start talking about how awful it is that humans are being used as monster bait, and they wonder why the other races even hate humans so much in the first place. But they can't come up with any real answers. Their leader tells them there's no point in pondering it now because they'll be leaving bright and early tomorrow morning, so they had better not be late. That night, Sasha is sitting in her room grinding her teeth over the fact that she can't get to the tower alone because there are monsters over level 1000 in there. At this rate, it won't be long before the nation officially mobilizes the White Knights, and if they make it to the tower before her, they are going to find out that she didn't actually kill Light, and she can't let that happen. So she needs to figure out a way to make it over there so she can finally finish Light off with her own hands. The next morning, the Elven Council holds a meeting to discuss what to do about the recent rise in monsters, and since they aren't fully aware of what the monsters are capable of, one of the officials suggests that they should send in their best forces before any harm befalls the citizens, and she asks the White Knight captain what he thinks about the plan. Hardy says he is aware how important it is that they keep their citizens safe, but he can't agree with such an idiotic plan. Sending the White Knights out with no clear intel would be like using a fine sword to poke through the mud, and no matter how good a sword is, it remains useless if you don't know where to strike. The Queen sides with Hardy on this matter and decided that the best course of action would be to increase the reward for information on the tower, and once they have gathered sufficient intel from the adventurers, they will dispatch the White Knights. No one can go against the Queen's orders, so the meeting is concluded, but the Chancellor seems to be holding a grudge because he thinks the only reason the Queen sided with Hardy is due to the fact that she's his mother. Later on, Hardy heads to his mother's chambers to thank her for supporting him because now he and his men won't have to go out and do the dirty work in person. His mother laughs and says she'd never let her precious son be out in any serious danger, but the mystery of the giant tower is a pressing issue, so they will need to deal with it soon. He asks if she thinks this might be the coming of another Dark Lord, but that's not necessarily what the Queen is worried about. If a Dark Lord is born, then that would mean a hero would be born from the heroes as well, and they are likely to be a master. So, if that's the case, the elves are going to need to either win them over or kill them to avoid being destroyed. Speaking of which, Hardy recalls hearing about a potential master a few years back, but the Queen says the boy turned out to be regular, so he was apparently disposed of. She asks why he's so interested, but Hardy says he was just thinking about how he would have loved to be a part of that mission because he thinks all humans are pests who deserve to be eliminated. The next morning, the guild posts even more quests for information on the giant tower, and a ton of adventurers show up, including Light and the others. But while they're walking, Sasha happens to pass by and she recognizes Light's voice, so she turns around and demands that he show her his face immediately. Light tries to play it cool and tells her that he is wearing a mask to cover burn marks on his face, so he can't remove it. However, Sasha completely ignores him and smacks the mask right off his face. This was the end of episode 8. Subscribe to not miss the next part. While Light wanted nothing more than to attack Sasha right then and there, he knew that doing so would ruin the grand revenge he'd been planning for years. So, keeping his cool, he pulled back his hood to reveal terrifying scars covering his entire face. The ghastly disfigurement made him unrecognizable to Sasha. She found the sight so repulsive that she actually screamed at him, accusing him of offending her eyes with such an ugly mug, even though she was the one who had insisted on the meeting. Once Sasha was gone, Light revealed the truth. He hadn't actually burned his face to hide his identity. The marks were just an illusion created by a mask. He was pleased the trick worked well enough to deceive her and get her to leave on her own. However, as they entered the forest, it seemed the two elves Light had insulted earlier were still holding a grudge. Light noticed them tailing him, but since he had bigger fish to fry, he decided to give them a break. He warned them to back off unless they had a death wish. The elves, assuming a human couldn't possibly beat them, thought he was bluffing and kept pursuing. Initially, Light ignored them, deciding they weren't worth his time. Shortly after, Light arrived at the rendezvous point, but the rest of the group hadn't shown up yet, so he had to wait a few minutes. Suddenly, the two elves caught up. Light was genuinely impressed by their stamina to keep pace with him this far, noting that their persistence was admirable. Unfortunately, that was their only redeeming quality. Light had given them a fair warning, yet they still wanted a fight, leaving him no choice. He called out to May to handle them for him. The elves didn't stop mocking Light, thinking they'd make him pay for his disrespect, but their smiles were wiped off their faces the second May appeared, declaring it was too late to beg. Their fate was sealed the moment they insulted Light. May then devoured the two elves whole. Afterward, Lai apologized for wasting May's time on such a trivial matter, but she reassured him it was fine. For his sake, she'd happily devour 1,000 elves, even if they tasted terrible. Shortly after, the rest of the group arrived, and Lai was glad to see them. He had summoned them to escort him through the forest to the tower, since flying wasn't an option with so many adventurers in the area. Suzu took point as the group started walking toward the tower. Along the way, Gold mentioned how happy he was to see Jack again, though he was surprised Jack had bothered to come when he wasn't obligated to. Jack explained it was mostly Ellie's idea, but he also didn't want to leave Light to handle all the heavy lifting alone. When the girls heard Jack call Light Lightster, they immediately got hostile over the lack of formality. But to Jack, they were the arrogant ones. First, Light hadn't asked for that level of formality. Second, if they kept distancing themselves with excessive titles, Light would end up isolated on a pedestal, surrounded by servants instead of friends. If that was what they wanted for Light, Jack was ready to knock some sense into them. Before a brawl could break out, though, Light stepped in, asking Jack to calm down since he didn't want any trouble. He told the girls the same thing, diffusing the situation as they continued toward the tower. The tension lingered at first, but since there was no real ill will, things calmed down quickly. Still, Light wasn't sure what to make of Suzu. Suzu was so shy they couldn't speak to anyone except mascot Luke, whom they trusted. Light had a lot of questions about Suzu, mainly because their status card listed them as androgynous. Light couldn't tell if Suzu was male or female, and couldn't exactly check, so he just had to guess. Finally, the group arrived. In Light's opinion, Ellie had done a magnificent job. The tower looked both terrifying and majestic up close. The quartet came down immediately to greet Light. Now that everyone was gathered, Ellie opened the entrance to show him the whole place. She had built the tower using data analyzed from the Abyss Dungeon core, fully reinforcing it to prevent any outside physical or magical interference. She also had a new pet, a dragon she'd brought in to assist with the revenge plan. As requested, the top floor had been converted into a wedding hall for the grand finale. Light approached the throne Ellie had crafted for him. Since everyone was present, Ellie asked for permission to go over the plan's details, and Light gave the go-ahead. She began explaining that Light intended to execute his revenge on the day Sasha was set to marry into the royal family. However, she'd made some adjustments to avoid unwanted wedding crashes. Hearing this for the first time, Light asked what she had changed. Ellie explained that since the White Knights were known as the kingdom's strongest warriors, they would definitely try to interfere. So she devised a way to take them out early. This would let them test their military strength against the Elf Kingdom's best forces. Plus, once the White Knights were defeated, subduing the Elf Nation and getting intel on the Masters would be much easier. Light agreed that Ellie's addition to the plan was a huge help. Furthermore, once they took control of the Elf Nation, they could use the tower as a base to investigate other nations. To prevent suspicion, Ellie even created a shadow clone of Light to handle his adventurer duties while the real Light focused on revenge. Light was impressed by the depth of thought Ellie had put into this. While they were talking, Aoi was controlling monsters to herd Sasha toward the tower. Back in the forest, Sasha and her hired elf guards were hiding in the bushes, knowing they stood no chance against the local monsters. Despite trying to stay hidden, they were gradually shepherded toward the tower. Upon arrival, they were greeted by Ellie's new pet, just as planned. Sasha was terrified the moment she saw the dragon and turned to run, knowing she couldn't face such a monster alone. The only ones capable of defeating it were the White Knights. She hesitated to summon them, not wanting them to find out Light might still be alive, but she had no choice. From the top of the tower, the group watched Sasha flee. Ellie was certain she'd return with the White Knights because she had no other option. When that happened, the White Knights would be forced to face the strongest warriors of the Abyss, and Ellie was confident Light would enjoy the show. That evening, Sasha met with the Elf Council to report what she'd seen. Not only were there monsters stronger than any ordinary elf roaming the forest, but a dragon was resting near the tower itself. This caught the Queen's attention. She couldn't imagine a creature of that power just appearing there. She was skeptical, but Sasha insisted it was the truth. In fact, the Chancellor confirmed he'd received a similar report from a human group. If two different groups were reporting the same thing, it was likely true. With the report confirmed, the Chancellor asked Hardy what he intended to do. With enough intel on the threat, Hardy had no excuse not to mobilize the White Knights and was forced to agree. He stood up and announced he would lead the campaign to defeat the monsters and uncover the tower's mystery. Shortly after, Sasha asked the Chancellor for permission to join the mission, claiming it was for the nation's safety. The Chancellor told her she didn't need to beg. He was already planning to include her. It would be a great boost to her public image before she married Michael. However, there was one condition. Sasha had to borrow an artifact from her father's collection. Without it, she'd just be a burden on the White Knights. Sasha agreed and went to see her father that night. The next day, she headed to the edge of the forest to meet the White Knights. Most of them didn't understand why they had to bring Sasha along, but Michael assured them that Sasha was capable of protecting herself and that he'd protect her if anything went wrong. The ninja and the others assumed the only reason Sasha was allowed to join was the Chancellor's closeness to Michael. However, she wasn't completely useless, as she was the only one who knew the correct path to the tower. As they approached the tower, Light watched from above. He was practically trembling with excitement. He would finally be able to execute his revenge, and he couldn't wait to see Sasha's terrified reaction when she saw him. As Sasha and the knights walked through the forest, they asked if she was sure they were on the right path. Sasha said she was certain because she had marked the trees the last time she passed through. She spotted one of the marks ahead, but as she went to check it, she tripped on some roots. Michael caught her immediately. He told her he understood she was eager to reach the castle, but he didn't want her getting hurt, so she had to be careful. Eventually, they arrived at the tower. It was as impressive as they expected. Michael praised Sasha for leading them there skillfully, but suddenly the tower doors threw open and a swarm of rock monsters emerged. Although the White Knights were able to thin their numbers, Hardy decided it was too dangerous and insisted on waiting for the decoy adventurers they had paid. Shortly after, fireworks went off in the forest, alerting the monsters and drawing them away to investigate the noise. Now the only monster left was the dragon inside. So, Hardy announced they would enter using his special silence spell. This unique spell nullified all sound within its range, creating a zone of total silence so they could move undetected. However, as they rushed in, they suddenly fell into a teleportation trap. In an instant, they were separated and scattered into different rooms throughout the tower. Hello friends, welcome back to the channel. Before we dive into today's recap, let me know in the comments down below which country you are watching this anime from. I'd love to know where you guys are. The episode begins with Sasha and Mika realize they must be somewhere else in the tower. So Mika tells her to stay behind him in case something happens as they make their way up. But little do they know that they are heading right into Light's trap, and the second those doors open, it will all all begin. Meanwhile, Kaya and Hia are also lost in the tower, so they decide to try looking for the others so they can regroup as soon as possible. However, all of a sudden, they hear the sound of footsteps approaching, and it turns out to be Ice Hot and Mia. They are both arguing over who gets to take care of the prey first, and after hearing those two call them prey, Nia and Kaya become greatly offended. They ask the two they think they are, and Mia responds saying they are their opponents, though she doesn't think this is going to be much of a battle, since Nia and Kia are nowhere near strong enough to pose a threat to them. Hearing this really sets the twins off, because they refuse to be looked down upon by a pair of insignificant humans, so they begin dashing around the room and declare that they will slice off all of their limbs and turn them into toys, all while Mira and Ice Hot watch in amusement. Elsewhere in the tower, Sharetta is all alone, and he is really disappointed in himself for failing to spot that teleportation trap before it activated. He has no idea where he is, but he can sense someone watching him from around the corner. So he yells for them to get out here and talk to him face to face already. Moments later, Suzu steps out from behind a pillar, and Sharfet is immediately smitten by how cute she is, so he starts asking what her name is, but Suzu is really creeped out by his behavior. Locke, her rifle, suddenly speaks up and tells Sharfet that Suzu won't respond because she doesn't talk much and she's not interested, and they didn't come here have a friendly chat either. Sharfet is amazed because it's rare to see a talking weapon, but he thinks it's really bad luck that he has to fight them because he'd much rather fight Suzu in bed. But Suzu says he really isn't her type. Charlotte remains persistent and asks what her type is, so Suzu begins describing her ideal man, but Loches points out that her description matches Light exactly, and to put it bluntly, she has no chance of winning Light over romantically. He's technically right, but Suzu really didn't want to hear that, so she strikes smashing Locke against a wall until he apologizes, and all the while Charette is watching in confusion. He's not sure of who Light is supposed to be, but if Suzu insists on fighting him, then he's going to have to show no mercy. He activates an invisible crossbow on his arm and fires a bolt at her, and while it does catch her off guard, she's able to parry the shot and return fire instantly. Sharetta blocks Suzu's shot, and he is intrigued by her since there aren't many people who can block one of his invisible crossbow bolts. And likewise, Locke is impressed that Charette was able to block one of his shots, so this may actually be a bit of fun. At the same time, back with Nia and Kia, they are still bouncing around the room, and Ice Hot and Mea are starting to get sick of waiting for them to do something. All of a sudden, the twins both simultaneously cast a wind cutter spell, and it's actually pretty powerful, so Mea and Ice Hot are forced to dodge. Mea admits that she may have underestimated the twins, because being able to cast spells instantly while moving at such high speeds makes them difficult to deal with, but handling this much isn't a problem for them. However, Nia and Ka say they've still got a lot left in the tank. So in the next moment, they both unleash a massive wave of wind cutter spells, forcing Iseo and Mea to go on the defensive. And once Na spots an opening, he throws a dagger into Mea's back, rendering her immobile, while Kaya swoops in and chops her arm off. The twins begin mocking Mea for thinking she stood a chance against them, and they say they are going to chop off Ice Hot's leg next. But to their surprise, Mea doesn't seem fazed by the fact that she just lost an arm. She tells Kia to take a good look at his sword, and that's when he realizes that despite the fact that he chopped off Mea's arm, there's no blood on his blade. And the same goes for the dagger that Nana threw into her back. Mea then proceeds to eat her severed arm, and her body immediately begins to regenerate like new. Naha and Kia are terrified by what they just witnessed, because they've never seen someone who can regenerate their limbs before. But Mea tells them she can do way more than this. Just to prove her point, Mea then proceeds to rip off her own head and juggle it around. And this is the craziest thing the twins have ever seen. She explains that her body is made of an amalgamation of different creatures, so killing her is next to impossible. This battle more entertaining for Light by messing with them, so they pretended to be weaker than normal to give them a false sense of confidence. The twins still refuse to accept it and launch another wave of wind slashes at the two, but this time Mea and Ice Hot decide not to move. All the slashes literally bounce off their bodies. Nia and Kia are starting to get desperate, so they rush in to attack the two with their swords. But even though they didn't defend themselves at all, the strikes had no effect, And it was at this moment that Nia and Kia realized that they were sorely outmatched. So they did the only reasonable thing they could think of. They took off. Eyeshot refuses to let them get away, so she prepares to attack, and Mara forms a shield to protect herself, so she doesn't get caught in the crossfire. Meanwhile, Charetta is still fighting Suzu, and so far she's been doing nothing but dodging his attacks. So he begins provoking her on to fight back. At one point, he corners her with a large barrage of shots, but she manages to come out unscathed, which really impresses him. So he asked her once again to become his girlfriend. After all, whoever this light guy she likes is, there's no way a loser like that is good enough for her. However, saying that was the biggest mistake of his life, because till now, Suzu had just been treating him as a mild annoyance, but as soon as those words left Shafet's mouth, she had nothing but murderous intent aimed towards him. Back with Nia and Kia, they've just run into a wall in their attempt to flee, so Kia suggests they should run along it since it will eventually lead them to an exit. However, all of a sudden, they are hit with a sudden heat wave and realize it must be coming from Icehaw. At this rate, they'll be burnt to death if they don't do something quickly. So they both agree to work together to create an ice wall. However, immediately after the ice wall is created, it begins to melt under the intense heat, so they are forced to continue casting it over and over until their mana eventually isn't enough to keep up and their bodies begin to burn up. And the crazy part is that Icehot hasn't even launched her attack yet, so all that heat was generated just by her charging up her attack. Back on Charette's end, he is currently learning firsthand why it's a bad idea to make Suzu angry. She fires countless bullets and has them all locked onto Charfet, so he is forced to run for his life. He tries countering them with his crossbow and actually might have been able to put up a good fight against Suzu at max power, but unfortunately for him, each one of her bullets inflicts status elements when it lands, so when the first one hits, he receives the confusion status effect, and from there, he was no longer able to counter her bullets, so he was Swiss cheese shortly thereafter. Kay and Nia are also in terrible shape, but they are still alive thanks to one of the enchantments that Ellie placed on the tower. It automatically limits damage to make sure no one dies prematurely, and it's a good thing too, because without it, these two would be nothing but a pile of ash by now. The two of them are barely able to speak now, but they start begging for mercy, and Mea finds this hilarious because, from the information they gathered on them, they always enjoy tormenting human slaves mercilessly for no reason. She lets them know that mercy is a luxury they won't be provided with because she has orders from Light to interrogate them for information while inflicting as much pain and torment as possible. So they've got a lot of suffering ahead of them. The two try pleading with her not to do this, but before they could even finish speaking, she suddenly forces two eels down their throats to begin their torture. Over on Suzu's end, Shafet is barely able to move as a result of all the negative status effects she inflicted upon him, but Suzu is still pissed, so she walks up to him and starts stomping on his face. Locke pleads with her to calm down because they have strict orders not to kill Sharat. Plus, with her current position, he can definitely see her underwear right now. That last statement snaps Suzu out of her blind fury due to embarrassment, and she now realizes she went way too far. She begins tearing up because she thinks Light is going to be mad at her for ignoring his instructions, but as Light is watching from his throne room, he's not mad, he's just disappointed that the fight ended so early. He is curious about how things are going for Sasha and Miko, but he doesn't want to check in on them with the scream because he wants to savor the moment they come through those doors. The two of them have been walking through this hallway for a long time now, and Micah is starting to get the feeling that they are being led somewhere. But the only thing on Sasha's mind is finding Light as soon as possible so she can kill him before anyone else finds out he is alive. Meanwhile, Must is still wandering through the tower before he eventually runs into Jack. Jack apologizes for taking so long to get here, but he's really not interested in the whole holding back gimmick the others are going for. So, he straight up tells Moose that he is over level 7000 and it would be in his best interest to surrender before he gets hurt. Moose refuses to believe such an outlandish claim because even the captain is only level 3000, so Jack must be bluffing. Jack doesn't really care if Mush believes him or not, but he really doesn't like picking on weaklings, so he plans to make this quick. Mush is enraged by the fact that Jack just called him a weakling, so he readies his axe and prepares to strike him down. However, Jack effortlessly swats the axe away and mocks him for being too slow. Moose can't believe what just happened, but he refuses to give up and charges back in to attack some more. Yet again, Jack swats away each and every one of Musk's attacks, and then he flicks his finger, sending Musk straight into one of the pillars. Musk has finally realized that Jack far outclasses him in strength, but he still can't grasp the idea of a person over level 7000 because he didn't know something like that even existed. Still, he refuses to let this be the end up from because he still has so many people to save. But speaking of saving people, Jack has heard all about what Musk considers as saving. In his mind, humans are nothing but insects that plague Elfkind, so he has deemed it his duty to exterminate them all to save them from their unfulfilling existences. He refuses to let Jack get in his way, so he calls upon his weapons ability and offers up part of his life force for a power boost. He knows Jack is way stronger than him, so he tells the Hellbird to shorten his life as much as necessary. And as much as Jack hates Musk's ideology, he respects him for having the guts to go all out like this to win, so he decides to do the same. Mush brings his axe down on Jack, but to his horror, Jack is once again able to block it easily, and this time his hand is turned black. Jack then shifts into his ultimate form and tells Mush that his attack wasn't bad, but his way out of his league here, so he never stood a chance of winning. After that, Jack punches M straight in the face, sending him flying into a pillar, and normally Must would have died from that, but thanks to Ellie's enchantment, his head is still in one piece, so Jack has officially completed his mission. That leaves Hardy as the last White Knight to deal with, and he is up against Mizuna, so this isn't going to end well for him. This was the end of episode 10. Subscribe to not miss the next. Hardy stays calm and composed, making sure that he doesn't miss anything, which confuses Naz a little. She wonders whether Hardy is hard of hearing and shouts out again that she is the strongest here and will fight him. Hardy calmly looks at her and replies that he hears her well, asking whether she is an enemy of his. Naz smiles and replies that she is indeed an enemy of his since her master doesn't like the White Knights and wants to get rid of them. Hardy maintains his composure and analyzes the situation. He notices that even though Naz looks young, she is not someone to be taken lightly, and if she is so devoted to her master, that would mean that her master is even stronger than her. He slowly takes out his sword, thinking that it doesn't really matter whether her master is stronger than her though, because no one is stronger than him. Nas simply smiles and calls him forward so that they can have a good battle before she beats him and drags him to her master. Hardy stands and checks her armor keenly, realizing that it is infused with magic at a lot of points. Even the great sword, which should be incredibly heavy, seems like nothing in her hand as she swings it around like a small stick. It's clear that Nash has inhuman strength, but he must test her to know the limits of this strength. Nash, being the impatient girl she is, decides to go with the first move since Hardy is being too slow, so she tells him to get his guard up. And with that, she swings her sword to create a massive shockwave towards Hardy. The shockwave is so strong that it shatters Hardy's sword cleanly in half and cuts him across the body before blasting the wall behind him completely open. Hardy goes into a shocked state and simply slumps over to the ground, unable to believe what just happened as the walls behind him crumble. Naz is scared as hell and immediately goes on to check whether Hardy is alive or not, worried that she might get scolded if the man dies. Ellie's voice comes booming as she scolds Nas for breaking the walls to her tower. Nas immediately tries to cover her mistakes, claiming that it's just a scratch and that the wall is perfectly fine. Light simply smiles as Ellie tells Nas that she made the walls of this floor twice as strong as any other because of her, but she even managed to break through this, which now she will have to repair using her mana. Nas apologizes once again, promising that this won't happen again. When she hears a small whisper coming from Hardy, she turns around and notices that he starts using a healing spell on himself and stands up once again with his broken sword in his hand. Ellie warns Naz to go easy this time and not to cause any more destruction. Naz promises to be more careful this time and turns towards Hardy, who apologizes to her for not taking her seriously enough and promises that he will now treat her as a proper opponent and give his all. With that, he pulls out a move from Jujutsu Kaisen and uses Domain Expansion on Naz, causing her to get entrapped in a soundless barrier, making everything around her quiet. Hardy knows that his barrier not only gives him a great advantage, but also saps out the abilities of his opponents and uses that to fuel his own strength by multiple times. With that, his body floods with energy and he uses his mana to create a magical blade which is more or less transparent, making it difficult for his opponent to defend against. Naz is a bit surprised at this as she has never seen anything like this ever before. Hardy knows that he must have caught her off guard, since this is his most powerful move, which he usually never has to use. He suddenly notices that Naz has put her sword back in her shield and gets ready for a fist fight, which confuses Hardy at first, but then he thinks that Naz probably can't understand the type of sword he is using and is trying to go for hand-to-hand combat. He gets confident in his strategy, knowing that Nash is not that experienced and will probably rush in for an attack, and that's when he will chop her cleanly in two. Even though he was correct about the first part, he couldn't even fathom the speed of Nash when she appeared in front of him. And even before he could blink, she landed a devastating punch, blasting him straight into the wall. Nash gets incredibly happy that this time the wall didn't break. The only reason she put away her sword was so that she could control her strength. Ellie still scolds her for leaving such a big crater in the wall, which now she has to fix, and tells her to quickly get Hardy and return back to the top of the tower. Light looks at Ellie and asks whether she is okay, since keeping up a tower this big must consume a lot of energy. Ellie replies that she gets weak in the knees sometimes, but she can hold it for much longer if she wants to. Light thanks her, claiming that it won't be necessary since their guests seem to be at the gate itself. Right on cue, Light opens the door and finds Sasha and Miki standing behind it. Light greets Sasha, and Sasha immediately recognizes him as the boy she saw in the market who had a burnt face. Miki asks whether Sasha knows him, and Sasha replies that she has only met him once in the market. Sasha gets annoyed and tells Light to control his tongue, as he is just a human and should immediately bring them refreshments. Light smiles, replying that he liked her much better when she was nice to him. Sasha makes a confused face, claiming that she will never be nice to a piece of, quote, human. Light slowly takes off his mask, and soon Sasha's voice gets stuck in her throat. Light claims that it has been 3 years since they last met on good terms, but Sasha is too shaken to speak, claiming that this is impossible, and asks what happened to all the scars she saw. Light smiles, claiming that those scars were just an illusion, and he has stopped his own aging so he could remember the people who wronged him better. She can't believe her own ears when Mikhail asks Sasha whether this boy is the same one she was tasked with killing, the one who was supposed to be a probable master candidate. Sasha is still dumbstruck, but he finally reveals that when they attacked him, he ended up accidentally triggering a teleportation trap and was sent to the lowest level of the abyss. There, he somehow survived and has been planning for the past 3 years to exact his revenge on everyone who wronged him. Sasha doesn't know what to say, but Mikhail suddenly starts laughing, claiming that this was the best wedding gift he could have hoped for, and luck must really be on their side today. Sasha is confused, asking what he is talking about, but Mikhail explains that when they kill the mastermind which threatened the kingdom with a dragon and retrieve the technology that built this magnificent tower, they will gain untold influence over the kingdom and loads of riches and titles. Sasha asks what if they learn about the fact that she lied about killing Light personally and making sure that he was dead. Mikhail replies that they will follow the YouTuber strategy, that after doing something wrong, just refuse to address it and everything will be okay. This fills her with confidence, and she claims that Mikhail is a genius. She turns towards Light and starts cussing him out, claiming that a filthy human like him would be crushed beneath their feet like an insect from a filthy bog. Light doesn't reply to her and simply gets up and picks up his staff before telling Ellie and the furry not to intervene no matter what. He walks up to the couple and tells Sasha that he will celebrate their marriage by his own revenge. But Sasha simply laughs, claiming that she is even stronger than she was before and has surpassed level 500. Moreover, she takes out a golden musical instrument which Light recognizes as a legendary class device. Sasha starts playing the flute, and immediately a bunch of magic circles appear beneath them and 2 huge deities emerge from it. The angelic beings are Phantasma class summons, whatever the hell that means, and the angel man immediately attacks Light. Light dodges the attack without any issue before turning back for a counterattack. The angel man realizes that he is in trouble and immediately engages his shield, but it's not strong enough to stop Light, and he breaks through the shield, even taking an arm down. He comes back to the floor, thinking about how he wanted to kill the summon with just one attack, but it seems like he will have to put on a show. Sasha is horrified at what Light was just able to do, since he is supposed to be a mere level 15 human. Light smiles at that, and claims that he forgot to mention, but he himself has gotten a little stronger than he was earlier, and reveals his stats. Sasha is shocked to see that Light Light is level 99, 99 and starts freaking out. But Miki remains calm, claiming that she shouldn't fall for his obvious lies because level 99, 99 is nothing more than a fantasy, and his previous strike was merely enabled by some special magical item. Sasha is the most gullible and delusional delusion there is, and immediately believes in Miki, telling her angels to take out Light as soon as possible. Light decides to prove his levels and starts releasing one spell after the other, first using Dusk Devil to blind them, then using Shadow Bind to stop them in place, followed by Ice Shard to stop the magical healing, and Fire Arrows to deal an incredible amount of damage. To his surprise though, Sasha manages to resummon them immediately, without an issue, and claims that she can do that as many times as she wants without really using that much magic. Light realizes that these angels are more troublesome than he initially thought, so he decides to go straight to the source. Within an instant, he appears in front of Sasha and tries to land a brutal blow, but he gets blocked by Mick, who tells him to keep his filthy hands off the girl. Light claims that he is surprised that Mikhail's shield could block an attack by him, but Mikhail simply smiles, claiming it can do more than just block. Just then, an immense amount of energy releases from the shield, pushing Light back. Light wonders whether that was a magic attack or just a shield bash. Mikhail laughs at his confusion, claiming that his shield is a holy item, which blocks the attacks of all the sinners and reflects it back at them. But that's not it, as he can also increase the stats of his allies by a lot. Suddenly, the angels start looking like they are on hella steroids. Sasha laughs, claiming that she can keep summoning the angels, and Mickey can defend her and boost the angels, which means that Light has no more options but to surrender immediately. Light starts laughing like a maniac, claiming that now is the time when he will show them what true despair looks like. With that, he starts chanting a spell, which scares even Ellie and the furry, who tell him not to use that ability, but Light doesn't care. He releases all the seals over his own magic and summons the demon-class weapon Gungnir, whose aura is so strong that Miki and Sasha damn near piss their pants. Mick immediately realizes that this is bad news and tells Sasha to attack him. Sasha sends her angels on him, but the moment the angel touches him, its sword shatters, and no healing magic is able to bring it back. Light keeps walking forward, so the tanky angel takes out his shield, but Light simply uses a light thrust with his spear to completely evaporate all the angels without breaking a sweat. He continues walking but realizes that the power of this weapon is hurting his hand as well, but he decides that he is willing to sacrifice an arm or two if that means showing these elves what true despair looks like. Sasha is beyond terrified and immediately summons an archangel, which is bigger and stronger than all the others combined. The archangel immediately uses one of his strongest spells, while Sasha laughs, claiming that there is no way Light can survive that. Light doesn't even defend against it, as the magic completely nullifies once it reaches him. Sasha is horrified and shouts at the angel to repeat the magic, but no matter how many times the archangel repeated the spell, it was of no use, as Light kept walking forward without even trying to defend himself. He laughs at Sasha's despair, telling her to try everything she wants, but no matter what happens, she is going to die at his hands tonight, and not even God can save her. But that's where this video ends. Remember to like and subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Our final episode begins with Sasha and her fiancé Michael still in shock from Light's magical energy. Sasha orders the head of the magical guard to use his strongest power, and he creates a shield to block Light's attack. Light looks at the head of the guard with complete confidence and says, "It seems you haven't learned," and immediately breaks the magical shield with one powerful strike. Michael immediately orders Sasha to use the magical instrument again to summon the guards after they were destroyed. When she tries to play the magical instrument again, she is surprised that the magical guards are not being summoned and feels that something is wrong. Sasha is shocked to see the magical instrument in her hands being destroyed. Light laughs and tells her that he used his magical power to prevent this magical tool from regenerating ever again. Michael asks him, "Who are you? Are you a demon or what? And how were you able to use magical energy to destroy our rare magical instrument?" Light immediately pulls out his magical spear and tells them that he possesses immense magical energy capable of destroying anything in its path. Michael doesn't believe him and starts laughing, saying, "It seems you've been playing us. First you told us you were from the 9999 class, and now you say you have a very rare magical spear that can destroy anything?" Sasha tells him that his last attack was just a stroke of luck and nothing more, and that a pathetic brat like him could never defeat them. Michael immediately brings out his magical shield and says that the shield he inherited from his family can block any attack regardless of its strength. Light laughs and says, "Alright, let's try it," and immediately immediately uses his magical power to attack Michael with all his strength, saying, "Let's see if your shield can withstand my great power or not." Light succeeds in breaking Michael's magical shield and sends them flying away. Poor Michael lies on the ground, saying it's impossible for a human to possess all this magical power, and asks Light, "Who are you? Identify yourself." Light tells him that he is now looking for the maestro and wants to know the extent of his power. Michael refuses to give him any information about the maestro, saying that someone like him poses a threat to the elf kingdom and must be eliminated. Sasha then gets up and Michael checks on her to make sure she is fine. He tells her that they must flee now and look for another opportunity to take revenge. He pulls a strange magical feather from his pocket and begins to say a spell to activate it, but he is surprised that his spell isn't working. He tries to activate it multiple times, but it doesn't work at all, and Light keeps looking at him and laughing. Light then tells him that his spell won't work because the entire tower is surrounded and a powerful spell has been activated that prevents the use of magic. Michael still doesn't believe him and says there is no spell in the world that can prevent teleportation magic. Light feels that Michael is stupid and calls Ellie, asking her to explain to this fool why his spell won't work. She tells him that normally no spell can prevent teleportation, but the spell she used on the tower is one of her own creations and no one has been able to find a solution for it until now. She tells Light that she worked very hard to activate this spell. Michael and Sasha hear this and are in complete disbelief. Light then asks him, "What do you plan to do now?" Michael tells him not to get ahead of himself because his end will be at the hands of the White Knights, who must be looking for them now and will come to help and dispose of him. He tells him that their leader, Hardy, has a magical power exceeding 3,000, meaning there is no chance for Light to defeat him. Poor Michael doesn't know what Nazuna did to Hardy and that she finished him off with a single blow. Light laughs at him and tells him to stay in his delusions. Then he orders the door to be opened. As soon as the door opens, all of Light's assistants enter, carrying the bodies of the White Knights, headed by Hardy, who received a proper beating. Michael and Sasha literally stand there with their mouths open, unable to believe that all the leaders have been defeated and are now thrown on the ground before them. They notice then that Light's hand is burned due to the massive magical power in the spear, but Light reassures them and says, "Don't worry about me. I'm fine." Light approaches Michael and Sasha and asks, "So, what were you planning to do a moment ago?" Michael immediately backs down and says, "Look, boss, I have a great plan. Why don't we unite and together we can rule the whole world?" Sasha doesn't believe the strange things Michael is saying. Michael tells Light that he possesses great magical power and if he cooperates with them, he can achieve anything he desires. Light looks at him in surprise and says, "Do you think I care about power and ruling? All I want is to take revenge on you and reveal the truth to everyone." Michael then says, "In that case, I will confess everything to you," claiming he had nothing to do with any plan to kill him and knows nothing about the matter at all. Sasha feels that he is betraying her and trying to save himself this way. She asks him, "What nonsense are you talking about?" And he immediately turns on her. The love between them disappears in an instant, and he says to her, "Who are you? I don't know you. You are just a whore and completely worthless." And tells Light, "Go ahead, boss, finish her off. She's not worth 3 pounds. But Light says, "Don't worry, I won't kill you with my own hands," and calls Ellie, telling her, "You come and finish them off." Ellie is very happy, approaches them and says she has been waiting for this moment for a long time. She tells them she will kill them slowly and make them suffer. Michael starts pleading with her, saying he knows her master is kind and would never allow them to die, and that he is ready to be their loyal servant, begging for forgiveness and his life. Ellie doesn't listen to him and keeps thinking of a way to dispose of them and torture them. At that moment, Michael seizes the opportunity and tries to escape. She immediately uses a very strange magic, producing many sharp tree branches that catch him and hang him in the air. She asks him, "What do you think of the pain you're feeling now?" He keeps begging for her to forgive him, but she approaches him and says he must be tortured before he dies, and she casts another spell on him until she finishes him off. Sasha is watching him, terrified, and looks like she has soiled herself. Light suddenly calls her and she asks, "Are you going to kill me too? Have you forgotten what I did for you when everyone was bullying you and treating you badly?" He tells her that all of that was lies and deception, that they were only exploiting him and that he saw her happy when he was being tortured and dying. She claims she is not to blame, and that Drago was the one who planned everything and she couldn't object to his orders. She tells him, I know, Light, that you loved me, and you should forgive me and only take revenge on those who wanted to kill you. Suddenly, Yuki enters and stands before her asking, are you never going to stop lying and deceiving? She tells her she would be a fool to think Lord Light would believe her nonsense and that she will let her animals eat her and enjoy her. But before she finishes her off, we see Light intervene, telling her, don't do anything to her and be a good girl. He tells Sasha, I don't want you to be afraid. I won't kill you now because I still don't know the full truth. Until I know everything, I will leave you to suffer psychologically so you can live through what I lived through before. Before he leaves, he says there is something he forgot, pulls out the arrow she shot him with in the past and shoots it into her leg to make her feel his pain. Then he calls Mira and tells her, you know the rest, deal with her. Mira approaches her, brings out strange-looking insects, binds her, and they begin to eat her. Sasha keeps calling for Light and begging him, but Light ignores her and continues on his way. Suddenly, the pain intensifies for Light and he falls to the ground. Light is forced to cancel the spell so he doesn't get hurt further. Later, he goes back to his cell and we see all his assistants worried about him and checking on his condition. Ellie says she is very worried about him because he used his strongest spell. She tells them that this spell gathers all their strength together at once, and Light had to seal this spell after using it so he wouldn't die. She tells them the important thing now is to pray for him to recover. We go to Light, and as soon as he opens his eyes, he finds May next to him. May immediately makes sure he is fine. Light apologizes to her for making them afraid and worried. When he tries to get up, she runs to him and tells him to stay seated as he is still tired. May tells him that he needs a long time to regain his strength. She starts reminding him of the first day she saw him, saying that when she saw the tears in his eyes for the first time, she felt how upset and sad he was, and that revenge was his priority, and he had been waiting for this moment for a long time to take his rights. She tells him she doesn't want this revenge to make him reckless and neglect himself because he is precious to them and they want him. We return to the Elf Kingdom and see one of the guards speaking to the advisor saying they have lost contact with all the White Knights. He can't believe it and doesn't know exactly where they are. The Queen is listening and says it's impossible for anything to happen to them, noting they have Hardy, the strongest knight in the kingdom. He tells her they haven't heard from them for 2 days and the matter is extremely worrying. Suddenly, one of the guards enters and says, quick, a huge disaster. The dragons in the forest are attacking us now. He tells them their numbers are very large. It's the first time they've seen them and they don't know how to deal with them. We see May riding on one of the dragons on her way to the castle. The queen is shocked by their large numbers and the fact that they have surrounded their palace. Suddenly they hear a voice speaking to them. It is Ellie. She tells them she is the witch of the tower and that about 2 days ago intruders entered her tower calling themselves the White Knights, wanting to meet her leader, but she did her duty with them. Suddenly she orders the dragons to carry out an attack to scare the queen and gives them a 3-minute deadline to come out. We see her later in their palace counting down the 3 minutes until the princess and the advisor come out. We see the queen threatening her, saying her presence is not welcome and what she did is a crime and it's better for her to take her dragons and leave. Ellie asks her if she is a fool, saying, your knights are the ones who came to my tower, which is why I came to you. Ellie says she wants to know the reason they sent these knights to her and starts insulting them. The queen is upset that she is insulting the White Knights. Ellie says they were probably coming to steal her treasures. The queen says the White Knights are not thieves. Ellie says, let me check on that, and tells her she will now enter her mind to see if she is lying or not. As soon as she approaches them, the advisor orders the guards to attack Ellie to protect the queen. As soon as the guards attack, she uses a magical spell and trees emerge from underground and crush them all. She keeps grinding them down until the queen finds herself surrounded by terrifying trees. Ellie approaches her and tells her that these trees are bloodsuckers and absorb the blood of her enemies. The queen is very afraid and tries to escape, but Ellie uses a spell and trees catch her and bring her back. She begins to read her thoughts and says, indeed, you are not lying. The White Knights are not thieves, but I saw inside you a peak of malice and hatred for humans that is unnatural. and that made me very annoyed with you. She tells her she will let her live on the condition that she frees the humans who were enslaved, and if they harm humans again or try to exploit them, she will have her dragons eat them and destroy their entire kingdom. She announces before everyone that humans are now free and can live their lives normally. We return to Light and see May telling him that Ellie executed everything he asked of her, and now humans are free and no longer slaves. Light then goes out and reassures his assistants that he is fine. He goes out to check on the city and make sure the humans are living normally and not being enslaved. Light says he had promised to turn this world into ashes, but now his thinking has changed, and it is better to protect the world instead of destroying it. When he asks for his assistants' opinions, they tell him, "Boss, we are with you. Anything you want to destroy, we'll destroy it, and if you want to keep it, no problem at all." Light says that if it weren't for the help of his friends, he wouldn't have achieved his revenge or been able to do anything at all. And thus ends our summary of the first season of the story of the Avenger, Light. If you enjoyed the story and want the episodes of the second season, which hasn't been released yet, don't forget to support us with a like and subscription so that as soon as the second season drops, you'll be the first to see it here.